सुख समृद्धि के देवता विघ्नहर्ता गणपति जी, आज के कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत करते हैं गणेश स्तुति से। तो आपके सामने पेश कर रही हैं सौम्या जी। मिसेस सौम्या राजेश जी, प्लीज़ कम। So, who is in charge of the lamp?
Lamp is here, but who's coming up on stage to do it?
आप करा दो यार, you do it. चलो
नहीं, पर कौन कर रहा है?
You help out, go. Okay, चलो. When darkness comes, let's not condemn the dark. Let's light a lamp to illuminate. We would like to appreciate the goddess of wisdom for her blessing by kindling this auspicious lamp. So, yes. So now I'd like to invite our chairperson, Mrs. Josna Govil. Please come. And we want to invite Dr. Kanchan Kaur. Please come. We have with us Lieutenant General Ashok Jindal, Commandant RNR Hospital, Army Hospital. Please come to light the lamp. We have Major General Ajit Neelkanthan. He is the Deputy Commandant, Army Hospital, RNR. If he is present, please come to light the lamp. And HOD Oncology, Brigadier Amul Kapoor. We also have Malika Ghosh with us. Please join in to light the lamp. And as per our tradition, we now call upon the youngest and the oldest volunteer. So our oldest volunteer, Mrs. Indira Jasuja, please. And the youngest, Alisha Bakshi, is she there? She hasn't come? Okay.
We have another youngest.
Yeah, then we'll call Saksham. He's the youngest. He's a panelist today and a wonderful human being, lovely child. Saksham, please.
बात होगी मेरी?
हाँ. No. इसके बाद भी साथ कर
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा गजाननं भूतगणाधिसेवितं कवित्थजं भूबलसारभक्षितम् उमासुतं शोकविनाशकारणम् नमामि
थैंक यू सौम्या जी, आपने श्लोकों और मुद्राओं से सारा वातावरण शांतिमय बना दिया. एंड देन
I now invite our chairperson, Indian Cancer Society Delhi branch, Mrs. Jyotsna Govil, to come and give the welcome address. Mrs. Govil has been deeply involved in Indian Cancer Society Delhi branch since its inception in 1984. She makes a difference in the lives of all of us by bringing out our talents and abilities. She is a true mentor.
Sorry if I seem like a jack in the box, sometimes coming from there and sometimes from here. But a very warm welcome to everyone who has given up time on a Sunday morning to be with us. We're really privileged to have all of you here, and it is my pleasant task to introduce to you very proudly the workings of the Delhi branch. I'm emphasizing the Delhi branch of Indian Cancer Society. There's a thing running over there, but with the state of my eyes, I'm not even attempting to see what it says. So I will just tell you that our work encompasses awareness, screening, patient support, data collection, and rehab facilities for patients. We started with awareness because without awareness, the fear of cancer is so large that it overwhelms everybody. We want to demystify cancer. Our attempt has been to give enough information about it without stepping on any doctor's toes. And going from the days in 1984, when we sat on daris with our audience, mostly in the slums and the rural villages around Delhi, we have gone on to using technology. We use Zoom routinely. In fact, it's making us lazy because we don't leave our homes. And we have also got our e-learning course, the course on cancer fundamentals, which is on the Swayam platform, Ministry of Human Resource Development of the Government of India. That course now has over 10,000 students from all across India. And we have gone on to translate it into Hindi. We call it E-Chaitanya. And in the E-Chaitanya series, we will now have also the Punjabi version coming out. And gradually, we hope we will have other languages. I know Dr. Mohanty is somewhere around here. I hope he will help us to translate it into Oriya, and anyone else who can help us to translate it into Assamese, we would really be very, very grateful. Screening has gone on all these years. We look for primary preventive screening of cancer, but at the same time, we need to remember that for most of our clients, this is the first proper health check that is coming to them in the boondocks of this northern part of the country. So when we go out there and people ask us in the cities, why do you have an X-ray? Well, an X-ray is like a hook. Everyone comes running when they see our van. Acha, extra hai. And we also have a mammography unit that goes out. Our data was meant to be collected digitally at site, but in 90% of cases, there's no electricity. So we either run our generator for our machines or for data collection. So we write the data by hand, come back, and fill it up. So we have preventive oncology data of about over, I think, 1.5 lakh cases, maybe more, over a period of time from 2012 until now. Earlier, we used to destroy data, and it really broke my heart to do that. We used to burn our files. And I think just moving to the electronic system has made a big difference to us. We take our screening vans out to Vrindavan. I have Rekha Gulabani sitting here. Mr. Misra is not with us today, but they have stood there and given impromptu talks on why the village people should come. And then the kind of overwhelming stream of people who turned up to get their screening done was both heartening and, quite honestly, heartbreaking as well. Today, we have our volunteers going out. Just yesterday, I was looking at pictures of office staff, of volunteers, everyone out there, and our screening staff as well. I think Mr. Sharma from our CDC is here somewhere. And, sorry? He is there. So look for him. He'll have many stories to tell you. Patient support. This is what this seminar is about today. We started in 1991, and we went on with just a few people who would come forward and actually admit to being survivors. The stigma was such that nobody even wanted to be identified. Now we have over 100 men and women in our organization ready to be identified, ready to go out and tell people cancer is curable if detected early. So we have been doing this all along. And now we have our rehab unit, Prashanti. I don't know if the doctors will like it very much when I say that cancer neither begins in a hospital nor ends in it. So therefore, we have to be there at the beginning with awareness and screening, and we have to be there for long after treatment is over with rehab services, information, support groups, and so on. We want your help. None of us are doctors. We have learned as we go along. We are open to correction. We want you to join us in taking the message forward. I think basically that's what I want to say. So I leave it to my wonderful colleagues to take the program forward. Thank you.
थैंक यू मैम। अब आपके सामने मिसेस रंजीत कौर, डायरेक्टर सहयोग, इंडियन कैंसर सोसाइटी दिल्ली ब्रांच, सभी अतिथिजनों का अभिनंदन करेंगी और आईसीएस की शाखा सहयोग के बारे में आप सभी को बताएंगी। थैंक यू। मिसेस रंजीत कौर, प्लीज़।
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Indian Cancer Society, I greatly appreciate your presence here to acknowledge the strong fight which the cancer patients put up against cancer and emerge victorious through this seminar, Qualitative Survivorship. I extend my warm welcome to the distinguished guests, doctors, old and new volunteers. Thank you for spending your precious Sunday with us. Our chairperson, Mrs. Govil, has already apprised you of the work undertaken by the Delhi branch. Cancer Sahyog is a unique unit of the Indian Cancer Society, Delhi, that undertakes all the works related to the care of the patients and the needs of the patients. Our Blue Coat team goes to 15 different hospitals in Delhi NCR on fixed days and fixed timings to give hope and much needed support to the cancer patients and their caregivers. Almost all our volunteers are either cancer survivors or their caregivers, and they very well know the pain and the feelings from which the cancer patients are, the needed patients are going through. The volunteers listen to their patients' painful stories, give them the warmth and the comfort that they need. They navigate them to the various departments of the hospitals, as most patients are not aware of where to go, since many are coming from the remote areas of the Delhi and the far-flung places. Such patients also need help in finding accommodation proximity of the hospitals. For this guidance, the ICS Delhi branch has a resource directory which is available on our website. Finance. Finance is the major problem for the patients, especially the underprivileged. Here, Cancer Sahayog doesn't let this come as an hindrance to their treatment and the care, as it provides them with all the assistance they need for diagnosis and treatment. Of course, we do have a set procedure that we follow. For the period from September 2021 to August 2022, we have adopted 100 patients and dispersed approximately 66 lakhs. During the pandemic period, our volunteers were unable to physically offer succor. However, they counseled patients telephonically. Despite the COVID challenges, medical assistance was provided throughout, and the allotted budget was dispersed successfully. The people reaching out to the Sahayog team and the office during this trying period has reposed their faith in us and instilled a sense of achievement in our never-tiring volunteers. We applaud for our Sahayog volunteers. Now, we are back to the normal functioning, and our volunteers have assumed visiting the hospitals again. In addition to all this, we have a rehabilitation center, Prashanti, located at Chitranjan Park. This is a complementary healing center which offers compression therapy and lymphopress and special bras and prostheses to mastectomy patients, as well as a vibrant support group led by a psychologist. A lot of other therapies and activities are done about which the detailed information can be taken at Prashanti counter outside this hall. Today, our seminar, Qualitative Survivorship, is one step ahead in this field, where survivors will narrate their journey of overcoming cancer, the hurdles they faced, and how have they overcome them. They will share how they have risen above cancer. These inspirational survivors have become role models for others who are fighting with the cancer. The topic will cover all connected aspects of the qualitative survivorships by the team of learned and the dedicated doctors. Our entire goal here is to work in the most positive manner, helping all the patients to strengthen their quality of life, embrace positivity, and to heal soon. To celebrate victory over cancer, Indian Cancer Society celebrates the Survivors' Day on the second Saturday of February every year. For the last 2 years, this was conducted virtually with the survivors logging in Pan India, and roughly 700 people watched it on Zoom and Facebook. Survivors Day concludes with the signature song, Hum Honge Kamyab, with the lit candles in our hands, symbolizing that cancer did not bring me to my knees, it brought me to my feet, as quoted by Michael Douglas, actor and survivor of throat cancer. Thanks.
Thank you, Ranjit. I now invite Honorary Secretary, Indian Cancer Society, Delhi branch, Mrs. Renuka Prasad, to come and explain the concept of the seminar today. Mrs. Prasad has been associated with Indian Cancer Society for over 24 years, and she's a role model for all of us, and we look up to her for advice and guidance. Please.
So at last the seminar is here upon us. We've been trying to prepare for this kind of a function, which is in the physical mode, and suddenly realized how much easier that virtual mode was. You know, you just sat in whatever clothes you wanted to, except did your face up, wore a good-looking sari, a nice sari, and there you were facing the audience, whom you didn't know. Some you knew, but the others you didn't even know. There was no eye-to-eye contact with anyone. So you could just say what you like. Somebody switched it on, went on to get a cup of tea, somebody went somewhere. So nobody was even listening to exactly what you were saying. There was no criticism, nobody critical there to say a word about it. How wonderful that area was. But being here physically, it looks so alive and you feel so vibrant seeing all the many colors around and the many faces around, smiling faces of our survivors, the doctors, and the audience out here. So we are gathered here today, as you all know, about our seminar, Qualitative Survivorship. Now this year, Sahyog brought the emotional support group of the Indian Cancer Society celebrates its 30th year of inception. And it is remarkable that it has seen many members achieve qualitative survivorship once they've gone past the mandatory 5-year period, which is considered to be the mandatory survival period. They have become aspirational survivors, overcoming their multi-dimensional problems to get back to a life which they had left before they were diagnosed for cancer. And they are now the motivation for the others who are the newly diagnosed ones who come to us on our visits to the various hospitals, which fortunately have once again resumed, as you just saw. Now, statistics, according to the Journal for Cancer Survivorship, these show that the number of cancer survivors is growing steadily, and this is due to the early detection and the advances in multimodal treatment. And that increase continues worldwide. In fact, in 2018, there were about almost 300 million 3-year and 44 million 5-year cancer survivors the worldwide, which really is a pretty large number, I would say. And really kudos to the doctors and the medical community for making these large numbers who are here. Studies have shown, yes, I think we all definitely do deserve a clap here. Studies have shown that the impact of cancer and its treatment has the potential to affect cancer survivors for a long period after completing cancer treatment. Cancer is no longer considered only to be an acute disease, but also a chronic disease. Late effects after cancer and its treatment are well known and can include, among many others, concentration problems, memory deficits, of which I can definitely say I have that chemo brain, 101 times in a day, and I'm sure others would also agree with me: depression, anxiety, and cognitive dysfunction. In addition, survivors experience physical late effects such as osteoporosis, hypertension, heart failure, diabetes, chronic pain, endocrine dysfunction, sexual dysfunction, and secondary cancers at times. These late effects may restrict activities of daily living, employment, social life, and family life, and lead to loss of independence and confidence. Thus, they directly pose a threat to cancer survivors' quality of life. The three core domains of physical, emotional, and social functioning, they define the WHO's definition of health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. The domains of economic and spiritual well-being, they are the additional benefits to all this. Thus, taking it upon themselves to rise above these insurmountable difficulties and get a semblance of the old life lived leads the cancer survivors to head towards a qualitative survivorship. All barriers can be overcome with strong faith in the Almighty and the faith in one's own self. The format of our seminar is today through an interactive session with treating oncologists, doctors, psychologists, and different survivors who talk about overcoming their cancer journey with immense fortitude and their never say attitude, like I have everybody sitting around here, some of them here who you'll see on stage a little while later. They are all the ones who have really survived and are today sitting here proud that they are the survivors who are able to really relate their stories and show what courage and determination they had. The doctors will first give their perspective of the treatment modalities, best suitable to the individual patient's requirements as overall plan of action while treating a patient, and after all, newer treatment options are guiding towards a longer survivorship with a good quality of life. This is what is being highlighted in the upcoming interactive session today, which you're going to be witnessing. With this, I would now request, I know it's not fair to get our chairperson up again, so we'll do this release down below itself. May I also request Dr. Mohanty, who is amongst us here. Please, sir, please come in here. We want to release the brochure. And also, can we have Saksham here, who's the youngest survivor here with us today? And you can take it down. We won't ask them to come up. We'll have the brochure released first. Seema said she may not be here, but I'll make a call for her. Seema, if you're here, can I call out for you? Her daughter's leaving today and they were coming to pick her up to go to the airport. So she had apologized that she may not be here. Now every seminar has an accompanying brochure which enables us to raise funds for the medical aid which we can provide to the disadvantaged sections of society through our patient support that we provide, which you must have just seen our director Ranjit talk about. Ranjit, can I have you here also, please? And she's coming here. Has she gone? No, she had said, she's here. Oh, wonderful, Seema. I'm so happy you're here.
She has worked very hard on the brochure. Is that the brochure? Yeah, that's the brochure. Seema, please hand it over to Dr. Mohanty to release.
and we have been quite lucky this year. Our efforts in the drive for collection of funds through the brochure and otherwise also voluntary donations has far exceeded our expectations, and the last figure that I had checked was 8,88,000, which I'm sure is going to cross 10 lakhs this year, which I'm very proud to say of all our volunteers who have gone out of the way to be able to collect funds this year. And some of the hospitals and the doctors have really been very kind, and out of pocket they have given us certain donations. Thank you ever so much. Rita Balla, may I now hand over to you back?
Can I just say one?
Yeah, sure. Take the mic. There's Anuj mic de do.
I just want to point out that our brochure every year has articles written by doctors, by eminent personalities, by survivors themselves.
Thank you, ma'am.
And they really are a treasure trove of articles. We keep planning that one day we are going to compile the whole lot and release it as a composite whole. If anyone here has got the time and the editorial capabilities, please put your hands up. We'll call on you to do that for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Renuka Madam. Thank you, Mrs. Govil. And Honorable Joint Secretary, Patient Engagement, Gurgaon and Dwarka, Mrs. Indra D'Souza, please come here. Come on the stage. She is very dedicated. और टाइम तो इनके लिए बिल्कुल पंक्चुअल, एनी टाइम. मिसिज इंद्रा d'Souza हमारे की नोट स्पीकर्स डॉक्टर कंचन कौर का स्वागत करेंगी. आइए मैम, प्लीज़ आइए.
नमस्कार सबको मेरा. Dr. Kanchan is an oncoplast. I'm starting with the introductions only. Dr. Kanchan is an oncoplastic surgeon. Currently, she is senior director at Medanta, the Medicity, Gurugram. She is a gold medalist, and during her training was awarded Pfizer Best Medical Student and the University of Jammu's Best Female Graduate. She has trained at breast specialist centers in London, New York, and Paris. She runs a breast cancer support group, Pink Prana. Dr. Kanchan provides free OPD services through a government dispensary in Gurgaon and is associated with a number of cancer NGOs, ICS having the honor of being the first one with which she got connected. And I think each one of our members knows Kanchan very well. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce her today. Dr. Kanchan trains blind girls as part of a novel program called Discovering Hands, where usually visually impaired girls are taught to become medical tactile examiners. She has also contributed to the self-learning online module on breast cancer, along with ICS on the SWAYAM platform of Ministry of HRD of India. To her credit, she has multiple journal papers on the subject of breast cancer. Dr. Kanchan is very passionate about early detection, and to this effect is actively involved in awareness programs in the community. Ladies and gentlemen, it would take me at least half an hour if I start enunciating all the qualities with which she is endowed. She balances her home and work with an aplomb, is a wonderful mother, and I am sure gives equal attention to her orthopedic surgeon husband. I wrap it now with a few lines of gratitude. Cancer Sahyog volunteers know that you are there, Dr. Kanchan, whenever we need you. A real hand-holding of emotional and intellectual support. So million thanks, Dr. Kanchan. I now request Kamna Taneja to escort Dr. Kanchan, our today's keynote speaker, to the stage and assist her in releasing Cancer Sahyog's biannual newsletter. The Nargis, which is brought out on 2 occasions, one on the seminar day and one on our Survivors Day in February. Kamna has been very ably and diligently putting together Nargis for a number of years. Just a minute, Dr. Kanchan, please don't go. So, billion thanks, Doctor. It is a matter of great pleasure to present you on behalf of Cancer Sahyog a small token of our appreciation for all that you have been doing for us, and never ever saying no to any time that we have wanted you. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Dr. Kanchan has to give the keynote address, please. Yeah. I said, how did I miss it, Come.
See, all that love made me very emotional, made me forget what I had come here to do. Indraji, and to all members of the Indian Cancer Society, hand-folded, thank you. Really, I am so honored and so humbled to be invited to speak at the annual seminar of an organization that is so close to my heart and that I hold in great esteem. The superhuman, never-ending, selfless, stellar effort that the volunteers of ICS put into improving the quality of life of cancer patients is truly commendable. So I want to start off by saying 3 cheers to the Indian Cancer Society. So the story starts with a 6-letter word, cancer. And this very heavily weighted word soon turns into a sentence for the person who's been told you have cancer. And within a flash of a second, a person gets sentenced to living a life of treading on the eggshells of fear of suffering and fear of dying. But does it really have to be like that? Well, years before we even recognized quality of life as a formal goalpost in cancer care, our Bollywood heroes got it right. So if we can go on to the next slide, please. Can we dim the lights?
बाबू मोशाय, आने वाले 6 महीने में जो लाखों पल में जीने वाले उसका क्या होगा? बाबू मोशाय, जिंदगी बड़ी होनी चाहिए, लंबी नहीं। हद करते हो। मौत के डर से अगर जिंदा रहना छोड़ दिया, तो मौत किसे कहते हैं? क्यों दोस्त? बाबू मोशाय
Cancer patient with a smile on his face, talking about focusing on the लाखों पल जो उसे जीने हैं and not that one पल जब उसे मरना है. That is qualitative survivorship. And through my slides, I will go through a little bit about what qualitative survivorship means. So the dictionary definition of a survivor is very cut and dry. It talks about a survivor as being someone who has escaped death. But surviving is not about not dying. Surviving is about living. And the NCCN Survivorship Panel supports the NCI's definition of a cancer survivor. As an individual is considered a cancer survivor from the time of diagnosis, through the balance of his or her life, and very, very, very importantly, family members, friends, and caregivers are also impacted and therefore included in this definition. Going on to the next slide. Sorry, I find it a bit... Okay, so successful treatment of a patient with cancer may leave them in a medical health state of having had survived, of being alive. But what puts them out at sea is the functional health state that they are left in. Were they able to afford their treatments? What financial impact did the cancer treatment have on them? What side effects of treatments did they have, and are these side effects persisting even after treatments are over? What about the socio-cultural issues? Were they able to go back into the fabric of life that they started from? This is what, can we go on to the next slide, please? So this is what survivorship care aims to look at. So I'm very happy to say that the practice of medicine has come a very long way. Doctors now look beyond the healing power of just their scalpels and their medicines. They want to look at a holistic approach that recognizes issues that arise due to the diagnosis of a disease and the aftermaths of a treatment. So while a treatment might be medically successful and I might pat myself on my back at a well-done surgery, all is in vain if the attending consequences that shape the patient's life and psychology are not addressed. So survivorship care actually looks to encompass all these issues. Issues related to follow-up care, the management of late side effects, improvement of the quality of life, and more importantly, understanding that this is not a one-glove-fits-all approach. Every single patient's demands are individual to them, and survivorship care has to be and must be individualized to each patient. And what is at the bottom line, next slide please, and what is at the bottom line of survivorship care is understanding this buzzword now in every field that we talk about is quality of life. And as I said, life is not only about living, it is living it with a quality. And quality of life is an index. It is a parameter in which treatment success can even be quantified. So going on to the next slide. So quality of life is a very, very important goal of treatment in chronic illness. And it has a very dynamic nature. The perception of quality of life for one person may be very different from the perception of quality of life for another patient. Also, for the same patient, the perception of quality of life might change. So just as a little example, when we sit in clinic and tell a woman that you have cancer and you will need chemotherapy for it, a lot of times the first question that gets asked is not, will my treatments be successful? It is, will I lose my hair? So at that point in time, the quality of life defining moment for the patient is her appearance. But as she goes through treatments and she realizes she can wear a wig, she can wear a cap, this is temporary, the quality of life focus shifts towards the side effects of treatment, towards understanding, I am going to be labeled as a cancer patient for life. Will I be able to live with that badge on my shoulder? So that dynamic nature of shifting of quality of life parameters, the reconceptualization, the recalibration of thought process of a cancer patient needs to be understood formally and needs to be acted upon professionally to be able to afford the quality of life that we want to give to our patients. Going on to the next slide, please. So it's common sense. Quality of life is directly proportional to the quality of care that the patient gets. And there are clogs in the wheel of continuum of care. And as Jyotsna ji very rightly pointed, cancer doesn't start and end in a hospital scenario. It spills down into the workplace, into home, into the social environment of the patient. And all of that needs to be understood if we are wanting to even address what quality of life means to a cancer patient. Next slide, please. So the spotlight is on the survivor. And as you can see, that a doctor is conspicuously missing in this slide. Because the doctor, once after they have played their role of treating a patient, the onus is on a very multifaceted fabric in the hospital, in the community, at home, to make sure that the patient survivorship experience is enhanced. And here is the role of specialist care nurses, psychologists, patient support groups, and carers. Next slide, please. So broadly speaking, we can classify survivors into 3 types. 1, who have no active disease and no ongoing treatments. They are done and dusted with the hospital diagnosis and treatment of cancer. Then there are those who are having treatment to reduce the risk of the cancer coming back. And then those for whom cancer has become a chronic illness, who are facing end-of-life issues and palliative care issues. For all of them, at some point in time, there are these multiple concerns that plague them. Financial concerns, psychosocial concerns, concerns related to the risk of recurrence, risk of disease coming back, the fear that surrounds the cancer. And it's not that the first group of patients whose treatment is over and not ongoing, that they don't have those concerns. They very well are plagued with these concerns as well. Sadly, we're detecting cancer in younger and younger patients. And that adds another element of concern while we are treating them. And these are issues on sexuality and fertility. And when we were talking about quality of life being a dynamic model and to give survivorship care as per what the patient's state of mind is, another little example that when we have a young patient who is to have chemotherapy, the discussion on fertility preservation is always made. But at that point in time, for them, that is not a survivorship issue. For them, at that moment, to take their treatment successfully and survive is the biggest goal. However, 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, when they begin to think about having a family, the survivorship issues, the quality of survivorship issues, for them at that point, fertility becomes a big thing. So these are the kind of things that we have to preempt. We have to anticipate and we have to counsel. All this forms the important web of continuum of care for a patient who's having cancer treatment. Next, please. So the Institute of Medicine gave out a very poignant report in 2005 when they spoke about, could I have a glass of water, please? Sorry, could I have? Yeah. So when they spoke about cancer patients getting lost in the transition when they move from being a patient to a survivor. And why does that happen? Thank you. And why does that happen? Because there is lack of definitive guidance on what constitutes as best practice in caring for survivors. And also, as we know, there are huge variations in care in the community. So when we talk about not letting the cancer patient getting lost when they become a survivor, we must talk about essential components of survivorship care that enhance the quality of their life. And for this, surveillance and prevention for cancer spread. In fact, you know, at the end of 10 years, when we tell a patient all is good, you can stop your medicine, you don't need to come so frequently, it is difficult to wean such patients off clinic. Because that fear, even after so many years of treatment, still remains. A little pain in the head, a little pain in the back, the fear has the cancer come back, even if it is not related to the condition that they had. And that needs to be understood. We have to assess and intervene for late psychosocial and medical effects, and there has to be a coordination of care between primary care providers and specialists. Next slide, please. In continuation to the 2005 report, the IOM in 2008 brought out a very important facet which they stressed should be a part of routine care across the trajectory of cancer. And this is psychosocial screening and care. We all know that cancer survivors who have untreated distress are very poor at compliance with treatments and surveillance. So yes, we treated a patient, yes, we patted our back, yes, we said you're cancer free. The patient went out in the community distressed, scared, and worried. So that is not quality of survivorship, and that is what we have to aim to look at. Next slide, please. So when we are talking of individualized survivorship plans, so tell me one thing, do you all believe that cancer care should begin and end at hospitals? I'm sure, as Jyotsna ji mentioned, no. But what happens in India? Our cancer clinics are overstretched, overburdened, and do not have enough resources to deal with newly diagnosed cancer patients, leave aside the huge amount of survivors who are coming for their follow-up and checkups. And that is why in the Western world, they are beginning to develop a very robust program of transitioning out of the oncologist clinic into the community-based public care program. This is a shared model in which the cancer expert in the clinic shares a treatment summary, a survivorship care plan, and a psychosocial care plan with the community care provider. And between the two of them, they manage to achieve what is finally the goal of survivorship, which is quality of life. And this, we have to understand, should be the way to move forwards. You cannot expect a busy oncologist to continue to give the kind of multifaceted support, psychosocial, financial, that a patient who has survived cancer needs. Next slide, please. So, moving towards that goal, in India, what we have to understand, that yes, we always look towards the West to give us answers, but our problems are our own, and our solutions need to be indigenous. So we need to do survivorship research which is based in the Indian scenario. In the West, if a 25-year-old girl comes with her parents and is diagnosed with cancer, the parent will not ask, iski shaadi ho jayegi, iske bacche honge. But in India, that is the first question that the parent will ask even before asking ki ye zinda rahegi ya nahi. So that is the kind of indigenous problem understanding and problem solving that we need to do. We need to educate all health providers. I stand here as a health provider and I hang my head down in shame because sadly in India, healthcare is not standardized. It's your luck where you end up and what treatment you get. So that education of healthcare providers to give some minimum standard of affordable, accessible care is really important, even if we are going to begin to talk about what qualitative survivorship is. We have to educate and empower our survivors. And our policy makers most certainly need to come in. They need to address reimbursement and resource allocation issues. In the city of Gurgaon that I'm in, there are 10 major hospitals with major oncology setups. There is not a single free hospital that will provide cancer care. There is one mammogram machine that does free mammograms and is run by non-expert radiographers. So that is the kind of problem of resource allocation that we have that really needs to be looked into. Next slide, please. So no talk about qualitative survivorship can be complete unless we talk about the lifeline for our patients, the caregivers. From the point of diagnosis, through the long journey of hospital visits for tests, and to the point of a stage of palliation and death, the cancer caregiver gets pulled into a vortex of unending physical, financial, and emotional demands. And we know that a caregiver can have a huge impact on the status of mind of a cancer patient, be it positive or negative. So they cannot be left out of the equation if we are to talk about giving quality care to our cancer patients. Next slide, please. So the spotlight needs to move from the survivor a little bit towards the carer as well. Could you please click next. So financial support. Is the carer getting enough money to look after his loved one? Do they have the finances to look after their loved one? There is nothing sadder as a doctor to sit and tell a patient there is treatment for your ailment, but can you afford it? There is nothing sadder than that. The workplace support. So in the Western world, I remember in the initial seminars of ICS, I spoke about cancer caregivers. And I gave the example of how in the Western world, somebody who is labeled as a carer gets so much support from their governments. They get tax breaks. They get leaves from their workplace which are not counted. Does that happen in India? No. So it is so difficult for a carer to keep running back to the hospital, to continue to take leaves, to be with their loved ones so that they can get the care that they need. A lot of times, once the patient has left the room, the smiling carer walks back in and cries. Why? Because they didn't want to cry in front of their loved one who's suffering. So that kind of support that we all look to give the cancer patient, we need to embrace the carer as well. If the carer feels looked after and happy, our cancer patient is most certainly going to feel the same way. And what if they are tired? They're tired of their duties. Do they have a backup carer? Is there a facility available where they can say, आज मैं hospital नहीं जा सकता, कोई और इसको कीमो के लिए ले जाए? Is there facility available or not? And we have to understand that when we are talking of continuum of care, we do need to give a break to those who are completely engrossed in the web of doing this without any time to sit back and relax. And over here, I'm just towards the end of my talk, I want to talk about the sad fact that we all know that more than 80% cancer patients in India present at late stages. So our burden of patients needing palliative care, of chronic cancer care is higher. Can we do that at home? Can that be done in hospitals? Next slide, please. Please click next. Another next, and that's it. So we have to understand, and we must all champion to have more specialized palliative care centers and hospices. Too many patients who are terminally ill die at home without receiving the kind of care that they should receive at that stage of their life because there aren't enough trained people to do that. So palliative care should be a big part of qualitative survivorship care because, as I said, it's not always about comfort in dying. It is about the comfort of living, and we must address that. Next slide, please. So what challenges are we facing in India? And I cannot stress this enough. Common sense. The later you detect a cancer, the more the morbidity, the more the mortality. So who has time to talk about qualitative survivorship care? So delayed presentation is one of our biggest challenges. Add to that lack of standardized treatments. You know, it depends on where you go and what treatment you get. A TB patient might end up getting chemo in a hospital, and a cancer patient might end up getting TB treatment because tests were not standardized and not understood. Financial issues. There aren't enough government hospitals to provide free care. They're already overburdened. And private health care, I know I work in a private setup, and I acknowledge can be prohibitively expensive for most of us. And also because, especially as Indians, we don't believe a lot in getting healthcare insurance early in life, although we all are waking up to that. But financial issues do play a big role and a big challenge towards giving proper healthcare. And then the Baba Ramdevs and the personal biases and myths that we have. Ye jadi booty mujhe theek kar degi. I don't need a hospital. So here we are trying to look at quality survivorship care that can only be done if a person survives, right? So proper health care, proper treatment needs to be out there. Next slide, please. So what are our solutions? And I will say again, preventive and screening strategies must be the most stressed upon need for our country today. I'm done with seeing fungating cancers in educated women. I'm done with removing maggots from wounds in my clinic for women who refuse to come to a hospital in time. It's time for us to sit in clinic and say, oh, even I can't feel the lump, it was picked on a mammogram. Congratulations, you have stage 0 or stage 1 cancer and it is curable. I want to sit in clinic and say that. I don't want to say, आप बहुत late आए हैं, treatments असर करेंगी नहीं करेंगी, I can't tell you. So then who has the time to talk about quality of survivorship at that time? So preventive and screening strategies must get a huge fillip from all quarters, from everybody who is involved or even not involved in cancer care. We need an infrastructure. Nothing can happen without an infrastructure. You need the diagnostics. You need trained medical and paramedical staff. You need specialized multidisciplinary hospitals. Cancer care does not work in isolation. Unless you have a multidisciplinary approach, cancer care cannot be the best that we want to give. And also, again, bottom line, it has to be accessible. It has to be affordable. And once the patient is treated, we definitely need to move survivorship care into the community. So if in a cancer clinic, we are seeing one patient who's just come with cancer, which is newly detected, we have to get tests sorted, this done, that done, and after that walks in a patient in their 8th year of survival, they're not going to get the time that they need because I need to move on to the next new cancer patient who needs more of my time. And that is why we need to make follow-up general practitioner-led and the importance of psychosocial support. As Indians, we don't believe in getting that. When we tell families we have a counselor whose facilities we'd like you to take, suddenly all the relatives make a barrier and say, हम घर में देख लेंगे. हमें किसी साइकोलॉजिस्ट के पास नहीं जाना है एंड वी नीड टू ब्रेक दैट मेंटल बैरियर ऑफ सीकिंग psychological help for the carer and for the patient. Next slide, please. So what happens? We've treated the cancer patient, we send them out in the community, and we want encouragement. But what do we get? We get encouragement of doubt. Could you press the next button, please?
हो तुम्हें कैंसर है? हाय उसको कैंसर था तो वो तो मर गया. अच्छा तुम्हें कीमोथेरेपी बोली है? कीमोथेरेपी के तो बहुत साइड इफ़ेक्ट होते हैं. अरे कैंसर का इलाज कराने से तो फ़र्क पड़ता नहीं है, कैंसर तो वापस आ जाता है. अरे कैंसर से तो कोई भी नहीं बचता. अरे हॉस्पिटल जाके इलाज क्यों करा रहे हो? उस जड़ी बूटी को ले लो, उससे बहुत फ़र्क पड़ता है.
Next slide, please. Could you click that again? So there goes qualitative survivorship for a toss. Because whatever we told the patient, whatever we did for the patient, they go in the community and they are told, cancer se to sab mar jate hain. Next slide, please. It's an earnest request from me and I'm sure all oncologists to everybody in the community. Non-experts need to stop giving expert medical advice to our cancer patients because that completely undermines any efforts that we make towards giving our patients a quality of life. So I end with a little sher because I know our ICS ladies love their shero shairi. एक सांस सबके हिस्से से हर पल घट जाती है. एक सांस सबके हिस्से से हर पल घट जाती है. कोई जी लेता है वो पल और किसी की बस कट जाती है. So as cancer providers, let's ensure that every cancer patient अपनी ज़िंदगी का हर पल केवल काटे नहीं, उसको पूरी तरह से जिए. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kanchan. That was awesome, as always. So now I invite Director Events, Mrs. Rashmi Vohra, to come and introduce our esteemed panelists. Mrs. Vohra has been involved in cancer care for over 3 decades now. She changes everyone's world with her kindness, a lady with a golden heart.
Thank you, Dita, for all the good words you said, but we're all doing the same work. My work is only to now introduce the doctors who are going to be sitting on the panelists. May I request, we welcome you all the doctors. Welcome from all doctors from R&R and from every hospital. Very kind of you to be here. And now I would request Dr. Hiba Siddiqui, as an eminent psychologist and a chief counselor in patient psychological services in the Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences at the Max Super Speciality Hospital, Saket. Can I request Dr. Hiba Siddiqui here to come on the stage? Yes. I would also request our volunteer, very dedicated volunteer, Sangeeta Malhotra, to be here for felicitation. Where is Sangeeta? Yeah, Sangeeta. Next one is, we have Dr. Vineet Talwar, who is presently working as a director in Department of Medical Oncology in Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Hospital, Institute and Research Center for the last 21 years. This really speaks a volume when a doctor works somewhere for more than 20 years. That's really great. Thank you so much, doctor. We welcome you. May I request Vandana Agarwal to be here on the stage for facilitating. Vandana Agarwal for felicitating here. Vandana is here? Yeah, thank you so much. We have Dr. Sudeep Raina, a senior consultant and director of surgical oncology at Batra Hospital and Medical Research Center, New Delhi. Thank you, Dr. Sudeep Raina. Very kind of you to be here. May I request Usha Ori to be here for facilitation? Yeah. I must tell you about Dr. Raina. One of our worker from shipyard where my husband was serving, his wife had cancer. So he said, I am going to Batra. So I said, okay. I asked Usha ji. I said, you please give me his number. And he was so kind to take my call. And the lady is doing very well. And they're blessing you all the time. So we need doctors like that. So that's great. Thank you so much. We have Dr. Prashant Siroya, an assistant professor from Department of Onco Anesthesia and Palliative Medical National Cancer Institute, Jhajjar, AIMS, New Delhi. Dr. Prashant, please join us here. Thank you. And we request Asha Agarwal ji to be here for the felicitation. Asha ji? Yeah. So अब हम वाकई तड़प रहे हैं सुनने के लिए आप सब डॉक्टर्स को. जैसा कि एक भजन मेरे हस्बैंड गाते हैं, मैं तो भजन नहीं गाऊंगी, दीजो ज्ञान हरि गुण गाऊं. सो आप हमें ज्ञान देंगे तो हम अपनी सेहत का भी ध्यान रखेंगे, भगवान का भी ध्यान रखेंगे. थैंक यू सो मच. गॉड ब्लेस.
So we have our esteemed panelists here. So we would like to start the panel discussion, should we? Yeah. So I would request, first of all, Ms. Hiba Siddiqui to start the panel discussion by speaking about the psychological effects of survivorship.
Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Hiba Siddiqui. I'm the senior psycho-oncologist with the Max Institute of Cancer Care. And well, we've given very, a short amount of time, so I'm going to try to quickly cover everything that I can. I think Dr. Kanchan did talk about जो stigma होता है एक psychologist के पास. So अक्सर ये होता है when I go meet patients, वो मुझे देख के पता नहीं कैसे डर जाते हैं. And I keep telling them I don't even look scary. So these are all 6 feet tall plus people getting very scared of me. तो मुझे अपनी power का बहुत एहसास होता है. शायद that's my profession. But I think when we talk about the mind, right? Can we have the next slide, please? I think I should. Is there a yeah, I think this will be much better. Thank you. Is this, yeah, this is fine. Right, is this okay?
Yeah, you want to come on this platform?
Yeah, I think that will be also fine.
See if this is so.
Yes, much better. The life, I think this was always my life, but I always got the front pictures, if that was the consolation. So, right, so I think I just have my slides on my phone as well, so I don't want to keep looking there, I want to look at you. Right, so जब हम health की बात करते हैं, we often look at health only at a physical level, especially cancer, right? कि अगर diagnose हो गया, क्या treatment है, primary treatment, secondary treatment, tertiary treatment, we don't understand often that health comprises of multiple domains. It talks about spiritual well-being, it talks about social well-being, it talks about environmental well-being, and very importantly, mental well-being. Now, अक्सर जब कोई patient diagnose होता है, they have a long journey in front of them. So today I'm going to be talking about the aftercare that is needed. Can we have the next slide, please? So often they ask, when, a lot of times patients come back after, their follow-up, 6 months later, 1 year later, 2 years later, and they tell me, why am I feeling like this today? I was absolutely fine during my treatment. I was so happy. Why am I suddenly so low? And they don't understand because they feel the worst part, they made it, and now they're fine, so what to do? Next slide, please. Now, it's very important for us to also understand that there are some very common reactions. These are just some of them that are common और मेरे sessions में काफ़ी दफ़ा उभर के आते हैं. So I've put it here. But one word I really wanted to talk about today was grief. हम हमेशा grief को किसी की death या end of life के way में देखते हैं. But as survivors, what we forget that you are also grieving what maybe you once were prior to your treatment. Sometimes you're grieving the time that you've lost in that 1 year, 8 months, 9 months of the treatment that you've gone through. You're grieving what you could have been, the trip that you wanted to take, the meeting that you wanted to go, the shadi that you wanted to attend, but you couldn't because the treatment came in between. So as survivors, a lot of people also feel post-traumatic grief as a result of their journey. A lot of times that induces a sense of loss. Again, loss सिर्फ किसी के खोने का नहीं होता, loss अपनी एक identity को खोने का होता है. That tomorrow I don't relate to you because you haven't gone through what I've gone through. Sometimes आप अपने दोस्तों से खिंच जाते हैं, आप अपने परिवार से खिंच जाते हैं, and you don't know why that's happening. Sometimes you feel jealous, and that's completely okay. कई बार पेशेंट्स बोलते हैं मैं कितनी बुरी हूँ या मैं कितना बुरा हूँ that I'm actually feeling jealous of someone who's living a good life. Maybe on social media, maybe they're around me, but I can't relate to them because I feel bad because that's not the life that I get to live. Maybe I wanted to go to an event, but अभी मेरे full hair growth नहीं आई है. Maybe I don't want to wear the clothes I used to really like because मेरी surgery की वजह से मेरी body disfigurement हो गया है. And so feelings of envy, insecurity are very, very normal. I don't like to use the word normal and abnormal in psychology, but for the lack of a better word, it's very, very okay to feel this way. कई बार बहुत ज़्यादा वरी होता है, चेकअप के लिए जाना होगा, आई डोंट वांट टू कम टू द हॉस्पिटल, डॉक्टर्स से प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है, दैट एवरी टाइम आई सी समथिंग इट टेक्स मी बैक टू माई ट्रीटमेंट. हमारे कई पेशेंट्स होते हैं, स्पेशली द किड्स एंड यंग अडल्ट्स एक्चुअली, दे लुक एट द बोर्ड, मैक्स का बोर्ड अगर किसी रोड पे लगा हुआ है, दे स्टार्ट गेटिंग पैल्पिटेशंस. And they said that it takes me back, even if it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, somehow that moment is so fresh for me. So that's why we need to realize that आपको कई बार आइडेंटिटी क्वेश्चंस आएंगे, एग्जिस्टेंशियल क्वेश्चंस आएंगे कि मैं तो कितनी फिट होती थी, आई वॉजंट सपोज टू डू दिस, आई वॉजंट सपोज टू गो थ्रू दिस. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. So in the process, what happens to you is how the phone battery starts going down. This is exactly how our mental battery also goes down. You start feeling burnout. You start feeling fatigued. Sometimes you feel, I'm just so negative all the time. मैं तो ऐसी नहीं थी, मैं तो बहुत खुश होती थी. They sometimes try to convince me in sessions that, you know what, I'm not this person who's crying. I'm actually a very happy person. And I said, but why can't a happy person also cry? You know? I joke a lot, but a lot of my colleagues know sometimes I'm just very, very low and I'm just like, oh God. They're like, but why? You're the psychologist, तो आप तो अपना therapy खुद ही कर लेंगी. And that's the myth we break with the oncologists in our team. And so we need to realize कि कई बार वो जो एक repetitive thinking आता है, that this is what I've become. These are also signs of you dealing with the mental aftermath of your treatment. You start expecting changes from your family, friends. वो मुझे पहले 5 बार मैसेज करते थे, मीट करने का प्लान बनाते थे, and now they don't ask me anything. As a patient, you're also sometimes more sensitive, जिसको हम clinical terms में hypersensitivity कहते हैं. So a lot of times what happens is कि कुछ चीज़ें दूसरे का intention नहीं होता, but वो चुभ जाती हैं. कैसी तबीयत है? So you start feeling, क्यों मुझसे पूछे जा रहे हो कैसी तबीयत है? Right? I am beyond my illness. Why am I always asked, how are you? But imagine a regular scenario जहाँ कोई आपके background को नहीं जानता. They end up asking you, how are you? How are you doing? You know, I ask most people. The intentions are very regular. The intentions are not to harm you. But if we feel थोड़ी hypersensitivity अगर हमारे अंदर होती है, तो हमें उस बात का बुरा लग जाता है. You start expecting more कि अब तो मैं बिल्कुल ठीक हो गया, तो मुझे तो अब स्पेशल ट्रीटमेंट मिल नहीं रहा है. पहले तो बड़े अच्छे अच्छे खाने पकने को मिलते थे और अब मुझे कोई ध्यान ही नहीं दे रहा. Look at them going back in their lives. Look at them enjoying dressing up. They don't care about me. So a lot of this is part of you undergoing psychosocial changes. Next slide, please. And just the last segment, and you know, maybe at a different time, it will be lovely to have a longer conversation about this. But some things that you can do to take care of yourself as a person, as a caregiver, and as whoever caring for each other, right? Next slide, please. कई बार हमें situation को एक नए नज़रिए से देखने की ज़रूरत होती है. ये भी realize करना होता है कि everything that I go through will not be permanent. Change is constant और वक्त बदलता है. और मुझे किसी ने कहा था मेरे घर में कि वक्त की खूबी होती है कि वो गुजर जाता है, अच्छा या बुरा. And that's what time does, right? Time heals. So you need to redefine what my new control is. This is my new normal. Don't pressurize yourself to be perfect. आपको 100 लोग WhatsApp पे गुड मॉर्निंग मैसेजेस के साथ 10 मोटिवेशनल कोट्स भेजेंगे. अनफॉर्चुनेटली मैं अपनी फैमिली को ब्लॉक नहीं कर सकती, बट मैं इसे इनडायरेक्टली थोड़ा थोड़ा बोल देती हूँ. प्लीज़, ये टॉक्सिक पॉजिटिविटी कहते हैं इसको, राइट? If you feel so sad and I don't want to feel happy today, मुझे भी पता है प्रैक्टिकली खुश होना अच्छी बात है सेहत के लिए, बट नहीं अच्छा लग रहा आज, you know. So it's okay, tell them, and it's about trying. Next slide, please. Realize that there will be transitions. Physically, there will be transitions. What you were before, what you are now, as a person you may have changed. As a person you may feel different in terms of my priorities, my expectations, my desires. Next slide, please. So it's completely fine to deal with negative feelings, doubts. Previous one, please. Yeah. हमारी previous one. I think वो timer में हो रहा है. It's okay. I think with emotions, what also is important ke you also allow yourself to laugh. That's part of the process. Just because you are going through a tough time doesn't mean आपकी हंसी पे ताला लग गया, right? You need to also normalize changes for yourself. It's okay, we can move on. Next slide. Remind yourself कि you have gone through something and you know you have resilience. हमें किसी को, हम सबको, nobody taught us how to deal with a pandemic. Nobody, right? We managed. We all survived and we're still here. So remind yourself that you could stay at home alone. You could deal with all those mental health changes that you were going through, and you know you're better than this. So don't hesitate to talk it out. Next slide, please. हमें अपने तौर तरीके से जो भी हमारे लिए एक नॉर्मल वर्ड होता है, राइट, विच इज़ वाई आई सेड आई डोंट लाइक टू यूज़ द वर्ड नॉर्मल, बिकॉज एवरीवन्स डेफिनेशन ऑफ नॉर्मलसी इज़ वेरी डिफरेंट. अगर इस कमरे में 2 लोग वहाँ पर खड़े होकर डांस करने लगे, all of us will be like, oh my god, not appropriate to the audience. But अगर हम 3 लोग यहाँ पर बैठ के बाकी पूरा ऑडियंस डांस करने लगे, so they'll be normal, we won't, right? So define your normalcy. हर बॉडी अलग होती है, हर माइंड अलग होता है. Just because 2 people haven't had the same experience doesn't mean you're a problem, right? It's okay. Next slide, please. And what it requires is that if you don't start, previous one, if you don't start with being kind to yourself, you're going to be hypocritical when you're doing peer counseling to someone else. When you tell them, hey, feel beautiful, and inside you're feeling so low on self-esteem, it's not fair. हमें एज साइकोलॉजिस्ट खुद की थेरेपी करानी पड़ती है, इसीलिए क्योंकि आई कैन टेल माई क्लाइंट्स एंड माई पेशेंट्स इन थेरेपी दैट आई ऑल्सो सीक हेल्प एंड इट्स ओके फॉर यू टू डू द सेम. कई लोग भाग जाते हैं कि इनमें कोई प्रॉब्लम होगी इसलिए ये थेरेपी करा रही हैं, बट देन आई हैव मेड दैट चॉइस फ्रॉम डे 1 ऑफ माई करियर एंड दैट्स वॉट इट इज़. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड प्लीज. इफ़ यू फील that you are not able to be understood, seen, please reach out to a professional help. Psychologists, psycho-oncologists, counseling psychologists, clinical psychologists, psychiatrists. If you feel you need medication, just don't hesitate. You know, I often tell the oncologists that I work with, and it's a lovely bunch of people, but you know, there's a running joke कि मेरे headquarters ठीक नहीं होंगे तो आपकी body तो बिल्कुल ठीक नहीं होगी. And you know, it's just a fun banter. Next slide, please. So just this, you know, one of my last slides, the key takeaways from this is you need to understand the need for mental health care for you. You need to normalize it अपने लिए, अपने परिवार के लिए, दोस्तों के लिए, and also reduce the stigma. बात ही तो कर रहे हैं, मतलब you know, everyone wants to talk sometimes. Might as well just talk to someone who's not judging you. Next slide. And I often say that जब हम survivorship एक label रखते हैं, या patient, cancer patient, all of these labels, you need to know we all are survivors. In some form or the other, if you're a caregiver, you survived your partners, your family members, your parents, your child's illness. अगर आप एक patient हैं, you survived a bad phase of your life. For me, I survive every day where I deal with grief and trauma and COVID and pandemic. We cannot equate. It might be very different, lekin in some form or the other we all survive. And with this, thank you so much. I will end it. If you have any questions, you can either ask me later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hiba. It was really good, and I'm sure it was very, very relatable to all the patients, caregivers, survivors. So now we come to Dr. Vineet Talwar, and he'll give us a holistic view on survivorship. Over to Dr. Vineet.
Thank you, madam. And I'll just switch gears directly opposite to what Hiba said. I'll take you back to the ground reality, what we do as oncologists. So can I have the next slide, please? So when you talk of the treatment modalities in cancer, we have come a very long way from 1846, where surgery used to be the main modality, then came radiation, then came chemotherapy, and after that came targeted therapy and immunotherapy. So whenever I go to meetings or I go to occasions, People ask me, what are you? I say, I am a doctor. Say, what kind of doctor? I say, I am a cancer specialist. Oh, डॉक्टर साहब ये बताइए कि targeted therapy, immunotherapy क्या होता है? They get a hang of what is chemotherapy, but they are totally lost, when they come to targeted therapy, and then they are totally flummoxed. If targeted therapy is there, then what is immunotherapy? So I thought I'll just break this jinx here. Next slide, please. So targeted therapy, the conventional cytotoxic chemotherapy has a limited benefit. So targeted therapies, they are designed to block specific pathways. Next slide, please. So like when you have this cartoon as a cell, you see the cell membrane which is on the outside, and you have this red and blue blob there. That is basically the target which is sitting on the cell. And whenever we give the drugs, they go and block these from the outside. Next slide, please. Because these targets, they keep on firing wrong impulses to the cell inside, and the core is the one where the cell proliferation takes place. So if you block these targets outside the cell, next slide, please, that stops the innocent malignant proliferation. So this is in very crude what is targeted therapy. You lock on a target which is sitting on the tumor cell, you blow up the target, and then you get the desirable effects. Next slide, please. So immunotherapy is again a totally different ball game. They are designed to harness the patient's own immune system to fight the cancer. So for example, if you talk in terms of arms, if I am to talk of chemotherapy, it's just like a machine gun. You take a machine gun and keep on firing at the enemy, that is the cancer cells, and hope that they'll be destroyed. So in the bargain, you might hit one or two of your own. You might not see. That translates into the side effects. If you have targeted therapy, you have a sniper rifle, you have a scope, you see the target and you hit it so that you don't damage the collaterals. Immunotherapy is one in which you generate the natural T cells in the body. You generate the T cells to such a supernormal level that they go and they encompass the cancer cells and kill them. So we are not giving anything from outside. We are just trying to harness the body's capabilities, its own innate capabilities to fight the cancer. So that is the basic difference between targeted therapy and immunotherapy. Next slide, please. So this is again a cartoon in which the T cell, that is the actual killer cell that goes and hits the cancer cell and tries to kill it. Next slide, please. So just wanted to explain it with an example. This was a young man who had cancer of the kidneys, which was metastatic, and it had gone to the lungs and the other parts of the body. He had a very poor ejection fraction, that is the heart was not working well at all. And if you would have thought of giving the conventional treatment, we would have, not been able to give it, and we would have called it a day. So this was the patient where we tried the immunotherapy. Next slide, please. And you see the haziness on the right side. R you can see that is clearing out. Next slide, please. So it's almost cleared out, and he lived about a couple of years. He had a very good quality of life, so as to say. And after that, unfortunately, he succumbed. Next slide, please. This is another case of CA urinary bladder. You can see the yellow part on the CT scan in the chest. Next slide, please. You can see that arrow. Next slide, please. Okay, please go one slide back. Yeah, so the one was in September, and in December you can see that yellowness has gone. So this is on the PET scan. The disease has been taken care of by immunotherapy. Next slide, please. So we can have various combinations with the immunotherapy. You can combine it with chemotherapy, radiotherapy, targeted therapy, and you can combine immuno with immuno also. So the field is wide open to choose and direct the treatment. Next slide, please. And we have now vaccines also. You must have read in the papers the cervical cancer vaccine, which can be given to young ladies. And India has developed its own indigenous cervical vaccine, which is a great boon because of the qualitative and the quantitative and the financial aspects which are attached to it. So we have surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, targeted therapy, immunotherapy, and now you have vaccines also. Next slide, please. So, as Swami Vivekananda said, that all power is within you, you can do anything and everything. Strength is life, weakness is death. Whenever I discuss any situation with a patient, I put the quality foremost and then quantity. Why? Because when you talk of quality of life and when you achieve quality of life, quantity automatically follows. And when you talk of quality of life, there are two major aspects to quality of life. One is, of course, the physical aspect, where you have to see the basic physical quality of life that is preserved and that is not maimed by the treatment which you are planning. And second is the financial toxicity, because India is a price-sensitive market. So I, as a medical oncologist, whenever I see a patient, I try to find out the financial status of the patient, and then accordingly I plan out. Because if I tell the patient that, see, you have a latest drug, and this drug is horrendously expensive, and it will give you a 10% or a 15% increment over the conventional treatment, and I know that unfortunately that patient may not be able to bear the treatment because the treatment might go into lakhs, I am going to create a lot of psychological toxicity for the patient, because the patient might not be able to forgive himself or herself that just because of the money I am not able to get the best treatment. So we as caregivers, we tailor make the treatment according to the finances of the patient, according to the physical and according to the emotional disposition of the patient, so that you have an equilibrium and you can get the best out of the situation wherever it is. Because India, as you know, about 7% of the people come under the ambit of insurance. If you add CGHS and other services, you can chalk about 19 to 20%. 80% of the people are the ones who have to pay from their own pocket. And that's a big deal. And the GDP of the country is not that great like the developed countries, where you can get everything and anything at the beck and call. So all these things have to be kept in mind whenever you think of treating the patient, whenever you think of giving the options of treatment. And in the back of the mind, you have to keep these things, that the quality of the patient, whether it is physical or whether it is emotional or whether it is psychological, and of course the financial, has to be kept in mind, and you come to a conclusion. Because the fear factor is always there at the back of the mind, that will I be able to take the treatment, will I be able to conquer the disease, and will I be able to carry on with a very good quality of life. That always is there, and that has to be allayed in whichever way one can do. And that probably is the theme of the topic today in this session. One thing I wanted to like to add, when Hiba was saying about your own, we also have a burnout whenever we discuss with the patients. So I am a product of the AFMC Pune. There, most of the students, my batchmates, they used to drink. And whenever they used to drink, they used to feel good. That feel-good factor used to be there. But I never, could get to take alcohol. So somehow it didn't agree with my system. So what did I do? Whenever I used to feel jinxed, I used to go and have a triple Sunday. That used to be my let out. So, as she rightly said, everybody has his or her own went out. So we got to see ourselves also, because we have got to take care of ourselves, because only if we are okay, then we'll be able to deliver. So it's a two-way process. It's not that just I am the one who's at the helm. It is both ways. The burnout occurs both ways, but then quality is paramount. I think I'll stop here. I thank you for your patient hearing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vineet. Thank you for introducing us to the new therapies. And also, we really were happy to listen to your humane approach that you have while recommending these treatments. Thank you so much. So now I would request Dr. Sandeep Raina to throw some light on the medical and emotional aspects of survivorship.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, it's not Sandeep, it's Sudip. I'm Sudip Raina. But I've had this issue since childhood. I mean, like, I guess Sandeep is the more common name, so a lot of people call me Sandeep. My presentation today is almost entirely pictorial. There's hardly any written matter here. In fact, I pretty much stopped going to conferences and giving talks a few years ago for personal reasons. I was always pressurized to be here, and I agreed to be here for one reason, because I thought I'll just share my story. So I won't be specifically talking about cancer. I'll be rather talking about my story. There are two aspects of being here, so I can wear two hats here. One is that, well, I'm the doctor and I'm a cancer surgeon, director, surgical oncology and all of that. But as I said, my main reason for being here is because I want to share a story with you. And in this story, it's primarily about attitude, my attitude towards life in general, and the attitude of my family and my friends as well. Next slide, please. I'm a survivor. I had my brush with this disease almost 23 years ago. And when I look back in retrospect, I almost died. I mean, I was in an ICU. I was not given too many chances to make it. But I survived because of this reason, because I really wanted to be alive. I wanted to live. Of course, I was lucky. The treatments worked. Everything sort of fell into place. But as I said, I very strongly believe that I survived because the fire inside me burned brighter than the fire that was around me. Next slide, please. Let me start this story as a kid. I was born in Kashmir, idyllic childhood, wonderful place to be brought up. This is, of course, pre the political turmoil there. Parents very well settled. Both of my parents were doctors. I was living the perfect life. And then that political turmoil thing happened. We had to leave home overnight. And pretty much that is a lot of drama for one's life. People have made movies out of it, Kashmir Files and this thing and that thing. And I think that's enough of drama for my life. And I thought that kafi ho gaya. We went through that phase of adjustment, settling down again as a family. Next slide, please. And I finally got into medical college. I was in SMS Medical College, Jaipur. Life was perfect. I was a good student, getting my gold medals and topping exams. I had a girlfriend for 4 years, who was with me for the 4 years. I was engaged to her. No, not my wife. My wife is somebody else. So I had a girlfriend for 4 years. I was engaged to her. I was due to get married. So pretty much life was perfect. I was towards the end of my post-graduation. This is a picture from that time. I think you can see the year also, 96, I guess. Next slide, please. And this is when I completed my post-graduation, and I sort of was getting into senior residency. I actually joined surgical gastroenterology. I wanted to super specialize in that. But that is the time I sort of fell unwell. And in the first slide, which is with my father, the slide on the right, something had already started growing inside me. I was unaware of it at that point of time. And in the second slide, which is just, I think, 15 or 20 days later, in fact, the jacket is the same, probably the same pair of jeans as well, I had actually started developing symptoms. I remember whenever I used to bend down to tie my shoelaces, I used to feel a sort of a tightness around my neck. And I used to feel this heaviness in my chest. I had gone to Jammu at that point of time. I was working with Kanchan's dad, Dr. Sheetal Singh, God bless him. And I knew something was going wrong. And then within a period of 10 to 15 days, next slide please, I was in an ICU in Tata Memorial Hospital. I was diagnosed with mediastinal non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but I had multiple biopsies initially, and they were not picking up anything. Then obviously you can't start treatment blindly. So I had to undergo a couple of surgical procedures to actually prove my diagnosis. So I got cut up in my neck. That didn't work. They were not able to reach my tumor. Then they cut through my chest. I had something which the doctors here would know. I was in superior vena cava syndrome, SVC syndrome, where pretty much your tumor is blocking the big veins coming in, towards your heart. So I was in a pretty bad shape. I was not able to lie down. I was not able to breathe properly. Really bad situation. And then finally, my biopsy came in after these 2 surgical procedures. I was started on chemotherapy, 8 cycles of chemotherapy. Next slide, please. This is pretty much during my entire, chemotherapy, I didn't click any pictures of myself. I hated the way I looked. I didn't like what I was, because I always used to think I'm some cool dude. And when your hair falls off, your girlfriend dumps you, she ran away. And you pretty much don't like whatever is happening in your life. And I took no pictures. This is actually a few months after I completed my treatment. And it is also by perforce, because I was supposed to get a PAN card or something. So this is the only picture I have of those times. I have no other sort of picture in those times. Next slide, please. But मैं ढीठ आदमी हूँ, मैं बहुत ढीठ आदमी हूँ. When I went to Tata Memorial, I actually fell in love with that hospital. I fell in love with the doctors there. I fell in love with the hospital. And I promised myself कि अगर बचा तो यहीं वापस जाऊँगा. अगर बचा तो. And 2.5 years later, after sort of getting through with my senior residency under Kanchan's dad, I was back in Tata Memorial, but this time as a student, as a trainee. And I have these two pictures here. The one on the left is, of course, with most of my colleagues and friends there. A lot of them are now currently heading departments in Tata Memorial. And the one on the right-hand side is very special to me, because this girl, I remember, her name is Lucky. She's no longer in this world. I was in my OPD in my thoracic services, and she actually presented with exactly the sort of disease, exactly the sort of presentation that I had. And I remember when I saw her file, I pretty much broke out into cold sweat. You know, it's scary when you see somebody with pretty much the same report, and you sort of start connecting with that patient, and you start saying कि मैं बच गया, शायद मैं बच गया, ये भी शायद बच जाएगी, and she didn't. She couldn't make it. And I remember I was scared. I was really very scared. Next slide, please. But I sort of, time, as I said, time is a big healer, and I am somebody who loves myself a lot. मैं अपना favorite हूँ. And I think I got out of that. I moved to Delhi. That's where I started practicing. And this is 2005, I guess. Next slide, please. And I sort of settled into life. I got a few good breaks. Work picked up. I was very happy. So one would say that this is enough drama for one's life. आपका forced migration हो गया, आपका एक cancer हो गया, उससे निकल गए, girlfriend भाग गई. Enough. मतलब होना इससे ज़्यादा नहीं चाहिए life में drama. But अभी life में बहुत कुछ बाकी था. Next slide, please. When I was in Bombay, actually I met my wife. That's her there, Aisha. And this was also very drama-y circumstances. I was a lot older than her. She is from a different community. And the stupid people that we are, 13 days after I saw her for the first time in my life, we ran away. We eloped. And there was a police case against us. And we had the cops chasing us from Bombay, Maharashtra to Gujarat, where I was actually arrested. I spent 3 nights in a lockup, and I fought for 8 years in court to get myself out of that case, because it was a kidnapping charge. You know, kidnapping charges can't be once they're filed against you, they can't be withdrawn. You have to actually, the case has to reach its conclusion. Pardon? She was 18 plus, ma'am. She was 18 plus. So I actually lost in the High Court of Bombay. And that judgment against me was given by a gentleman who was subsequently the Chief Justice of India, Justice Bobde. And then I won in the Supreme Court. So I actually had to go to Supreme Court to get out of this. While all of this was happening, next slide. We'll go to the next one. Next one, please. We actually had a baby. And my son, Kevin, and we forgot to marry. We actually forgot to marry. Because police case, court case, families against us, हम शादी करना भूल गए. Actually, genuinely करना भूल गए. We shifted to Delhi with the baby, and we were not married. And we actually didn't think anything was amiss. Till we had to put our son into school. And then I realized कि यार technically तो he's a bastard, right? You know, शादी तो हुई नहीं. So I said, what the hell am I supposed to do? So we actually got married much, much later. I think we were already 3.5 years after we sort of had our baby. So we got married, and well, now enough drama in life कि इससे भी ज़्यादा होना चाहिए. Enough हो गया ना. Next slide. Then my wife, hale and hearty, 28, full of life, she started bleeding from her nose. And we ran a few tests, and she was also diagnosed with a cancer. She had something we called an epithelial myoepithelial duct carcinoma in her nasal septum. Absolutely rare. I had to go back to my books. कि ये है क्या exactly? She had to undergo 2 surgeries and then a third one to actually correct a complication which had happened in the second surgery. But we made it, right? I am now 23 years post my episode with cancer. Aisha is close to 9 now, 9 years, yeah. Next slide, please. And this is a very special slide. This is the day we were discharged from hospital. We were discharged from hospital. She had a surgical procedure. She had those tampons in her nose. Morning में tampons निकाल के discharge किया. शाम को we went to a party and we got dead drunk. Dead drunk. मेरे को नहीं पता हम घर वापस कैसे आए उस दिन. And incidentally, the anesthetist who had sort of given her anesthesia was also there at the party. And he says, तुम यहाँ क्या कर रहे हो? और ये So that's us, you know. So whenever people talk about, you know, dealing with cancer and whatever, I just think we weigh ourselves down too much with this word. It's a thing which happens to you. It's an illness which happens like so many other illnesses. Face it and move on. Move on. There are more things that will come up in life. पकड़ मत लो इस चीज़ को कि कैंसर हो गया, ये हो गया, आफत नहीं होगी. Life, if you're lucky, you will move on. Next slide, please. Now, again about Aisha. 6 months after she got through with that last picture was, of course, the day she got discharged. She went in for Mrs. India, and she was one of the finalists there. Yeah. So, अगर मैं पागल हूँ तो मेरी बीवी भी थोड़ी पागल है. Next slide, please. And this is us today. That's with our other baby, our dog Thor. Next slide, please. And that's us. We like chilled out in life now. We're happy. Touch wood, both of us are doing fine. Next slide. Again, 2 of us. And that's our son, Kevin. He's now taller than me. अब तो काफ़ी ड्रामा हो गया ना, है ना? This should be enough. इससे ज़्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए ना? अभी और ड्रामा बाकी है. Next slide, please. That's my mother and my father. Both of them doctors. My father was a pediatrician. My mother was the head of pharmacology. And that little one there is me. I lost my father around more than 10 years ago. He had a cardiac event. And next slide. And then my mother one day gives me a call. She chooses to live alone in Jammu, though I insisted that she should be coming and staying with me in Gurgaon in Delhi. But she has her own place as well, but she doesn't want to be here. She likes it there. One day I get a call that, son, I'm feeling something in my breast. My mother is 70 at that point of time. And I knew that 70, a new lump in the breast can't be good. So I said, Mom, next flight, please come to Delhi. We ran her through a series of tests. Obviously, because I was around, everything happened fast. Within pretty much 48 to 72 hours, we had all the reports with us. It was a breast cancer, diagnosed as a breast cancer. Now, इलाज किसने करना है? Operate कौन करने वाला है? Everybody told me you'll be crazy if you operate your own mother. It's not okay to operate your own mother and, you know, hand her over to somebody else. Probably I would have landed up with Kanchan or somebody, I don't know. But I said, no, man. I mean, I tell people to hand me over their mothers. So I'm going to operate my own mother. So I remember, operating my mother and a little bit of tremble in the hand, when I started. But once, you give that skin incision, sort of everything goes away. And so I operated my mother. Next slide, please. And this is post-surgery. Again, just a few months after her surgery. And she did pretty well. Next slide. And just last month in August, she celebrated her 80th birthday. And still insists on living alone, still drives her car. is very upset now that मेरे को ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस रिन्यू कराना है. अब वो कहते हैं 1 ही साल के लिए रिन्यू होगा. नहीं, रिन्यू हो रहा है, but just for 1 year. So that is her, major grouse right now. That why for 1 year? Why not for 5 years? So that's her attitude as well. So as I said right in the beginning, I think it's all about attitude. And I don't know, I probably inherited from my mother. I probably imbibed a little from my wife. I don't know where it came from. But none of us sort of allowed ourselves to be weighed down by this illness beyond a point of time. At one point of time, we said, ho gaya, aage chalo. Because life has newer challenges for you. It doesn't end there. Cancer ho gaya, zindagi ho gayi, khatam. No, not that. A little bit more now. Next slide. My sister. She got married. It was a love marriage. And a few months after her marriage, I get a call कि her husband blood cancer hai. Okay. So I say, okay, what type of blood cancer? They say ALL है. मैंने कहा नहीं, वो उतना ख़राब नहीं है, वो दवाई ववाई लगेगी, ठीक हो जाएगी, या ठीक हो जाएगा, it's okay, don't worry, everything will be fine. 15 minutes later I get a call, no, ALL नहीं है, AML है. तो मैं थोड़ा डाउन हो गया. मैंने कहा यार ये उतना अच्छा नहीं है, बट हाँ मतलब फाइट करेंगे, निकल आएंगे, डोंट वरी. Another 15 minutes later I get a call, बोलते नहीं ALL भी नहीं है, AML भी नहीं है, दोनों है. I said, what the hell? And it was, as Dr. Talwar might tell you, a very rare form of dimorphic leukemia where a patient has both ALL as well as AML. And I spoke to my med-onc colleagues. Everybody told me that this is pretty nasty, like a 5% or a 10% chance of actually making it. And I remember asking people in my family that I hope my sister is not pregnant. Because most likely ये बंदा तो गया, ये नहीं बचने वाला. Everybody saying कि 5-10 तो 5-10 पे कौन बचता है यार. So ये तो जाएगा. I hope she's not pregnant because then okay, he'll die. Then a little bit of grieving for a couple of years. Then at least we can, she can move on in life. She'll get married again and blah blah blah. But this girl, she just said no. I'm not letting this guy go. And she fought. He went through all the treatments, fancy bone marrow transplant and whatever, and he made it. He actually survived. The medical oncologist told her that because he's had so much of treatment, so please for 2 years don't have a baby. Because A, we don't know whether he'll actually stay fine. He's fine right now. The disease may come back. It's so aggressive. So it may come back. So don't have a baby for 2 years. And she says, what the hell? मैं तो पहले साल में बच्चा पैदा करूँगी. And she had twins. Those are twins. So मैं कह रहा हूँ खानदान ही पागल है. So, but ये पागलपन चाहिए. ये पागलपन चाहिए. Not that कि ये नहीं हो रहा, वो नहीं हो रहा, ऐसे हो गया, वैसे हो गया. Please. I mean, as I said, it's just a disease. Move on. Don't get weighed down. And next slide. And this is nobody from my family now. This is a friend of mine. The guy, when he was I think 27, was diagnosed with a tumor of the parotid. Had been operated by somebody else who had sort of spilled the tumor, had positive margins. Then he came to me. I operated him again. We radiated him. This girl at that point of time was not married to him. She was his girlfriend. And the boy's mother said कि इसकी वो बैड इन्फ्लुएंस मेरे बेटे के तारों को इफ़ेक्ट कर चुकी है, उसीलिए मेरा बेटा बीमार हुआ. क्योंकि अपना बेटा तो ख़राब हो ही नहीं सकता, उसमें कोई दिक्कत हो ही नहीं सकती, लड़की का ही दोष होगा ऑब्वियसली. सो ही गॉट कैंसर apparently because of her. And then obviously from the girl side of the family there was this thing about इस बंदे को कैंसर हो गया है, मुंह टेढ़ा हो गया है, blah blah blah, don't get married to him. This is a girl who stuck with her guy. She got married to him. They have a baby. Why I'm putting this slide here? Because I was reminded of that girl who dumped me. Yeah, she didn't dump him. She stood by him. So that is what you want from your family and your friends and your loved ones. Stand by you. Rest, लड़ाई आपने खुद करनी है. That strength has to come from within. But yes, the family has to be with you. They have to support you. Next slide. So basically, a little bit of luck, whether you want to call it God, you want to call it nature, whatever, God will lead you through it. Have faith in yourself, love yourself. Next slide. And go out and experience life. It's all about life. One life. One life, which also isn't too long. Even the ones who live long is actually not too long. If somebody is 80, you multiply it by days and you realize some 24-25,000 days. That's it. अगर ऐसे सोचो एक दिन तो ऐसे निकल गया, 25,000 दिन कोई बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं लगते. And that's supposed to be a long life, So it's actually not a long life. It's a short life. Go out and enjoy. Don't get burdened by any illness that you've had, anything that you're facing. Face it and move on. Next slide. Thank you so much.
Yes, you truly need a standing ovation. That was really wonderful, Dr. Raina. Thank you so much for sharing all those nice inspirational stories, not only about you and your family, even friends. And I think we all feel very reassured because now we know that we just need to have a great positive attitude to conquer anything. And we really, truly love your more than filmy love story. God bless you and God bless your beautiful family.
बिल्कुल बना दीजिए मैम.
And since he's so handsome, I think he can be the hero. Yeah. So now I request Dr. Prashant Sirohia, who would put across the humane approach of integrating palliative care in survivor care program and a very family-centered approach to survivorship. Over to you.
Thank you. Sudeep sir, such a beautiful and heartwarming presentation. You are role model to many of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you ICS for inviting me as a speaker, and I am first time involving with ICS and I want to get involved in future also. Thank you. So my topic is qualitative survivorship and palliative care. So many of us, the doctors, the healthcare providers do not know the actual meaning of what palliative care is. So the patients, family, caregivers, they also don't know what the actual meaning of palliative care is. When I joined my MBBS, in the entire 5.5 years of my curriculum, I didn't heard the name palliative care or palliative medicine. When I joined my MD anesthesia, in those 3 years I've heard that term in few articles, but I thought that the palliative care is just end of life care. It is just for terminal care of the patients, and when all the curative intent is finished, then only the patients are being referred to palliative care. And then when my MD anesthesia is over, I joined Dr. BRA IRCH, AIMS, New Delhi, Department of Onco Anesthesia and Palliative Medicine under Dr. Sushma Bhatnagar ma'am, my mentor. My only purpose of joining the department at that time was to learn nerve blocks, was to learn interventional cancer pain management. I thought that by giving a few blocks or giving few pain medication, I can provide good quality of life to my patient. But in the initial few days of my senior residency, my two doubts got cleared. First, that palliative care is not just end of life care. It is not just for terminal care of the patient. It begins at the diagnosis. So here I want to emphasize what palliative care is. Palliative care is an approach that improves the quality of life of patients and families facing the problems of life-threatening illness. How? By prevention and relief of suffering, by rapid diagnosis, impeccable assessment, and treatment of pain and other problems, physical, psychological, social, and spiritual. Now my second doubt, that cancer patients suffer only from physical aspect of pain. No. Madam Dame Cicely Mary Saunders has proposed the term total pain. She said that the cancer patients suffer from other aspects of pain apart from physical pain, that is psychological, spiritual, social. So if I relieve only physical aspect of pain, patient might feel pain. So we have to touch all the aspect of pain. In IRCH, I have also learned about the concept of medical ethics. There are the four components of medical ethics. First is autonomy, second is beneficence, third is non-maleficence, and fourth is justice. Autonomy means patient should have the right to choose or refuse their treatment. And beneficence means all the treatment must be directed for the best, in the best interest of the patient. Non-maleficence means first do no harm, and fourth is justice, equal distribution of healthcare to all the patients. Apart from these four, there are two other aspects. First is truthfulness and honesty. So you have to be honest with the patient. Always the doctors and all those involved in the treatment of the patient, whether nurses, psychologists, all those volunteers, should give true hopes to the patient, never give false hope to the patient. And apart from this truthfulness and honesty, the dignity of the patient should always be maintained in each circumstance. So what is effective palliative care means? So there are two components. First is the prevention and relief of suffering and improved quality of life. These two components constitute the effective palliative care. Also, communication is the backbone of palliative care. So what is effective communication means talking straightly to the patient, making eye-to-eye contact. Mobile phone should be switch off or on silent mode at that when we are talking to the patient. Suppose the patient is coming in our OPD, he is telling his or her problem, and we are talking on our phone. So this is not good. There should be management of stress at that time. We should control the emotions, let the patient talk more, and we listen. So I have understood the basics of communication there. So now, what is survivorship care? Survivorship care also begins at the diagnosis, as ma'am and sir said, that according to NCI, NCCN guidelines, ESCO guidelines, they all said that the survivorship care begins at the diagnosis, just like the palliative care. So why the integration of palliative care in survivorship care is important? Because as the days are passing, there are increasing number of treatment, there are increasing diagnostic modalities. So number of cancer survivors are increasing. So there are more complex treatment, there are more complex symptoms. So palliative care is important in difficult conversation, in advanced care planning, in suppose we have to prognosticate the patient, then the palliative care, the specialist palliative care is needed. So what is the future? What is the future of palliative care and survivorship care? So first I will come across some similarities and differences. The differences between the survivorship and palliative care are small. So first I will cover those. That survivorship care focuses only on the oncology patient, but palliative care focuses both on oncology and non-oncology patient. Second, survivorship care. In survivorship care, there are long-term goals like to attain function, to live a normal, long life. In palliative care, there are small goals like symptomatic relief, like pain management, diarrhea management, constipation management, respiratory symptom management. So these are small goals which are in the palliative care. Also, worldwide and in India also, palliative care has gained some specialty recognition. But survivorship care is still finding its place in the medical curriculum. And there is a formal training in India for palliative care. Like in our institute, MD programs are running from 2015. There are the Tata Memorial also has MD program. There are many other hospitals which have MD programs in palliative care. There are DNB programs are running for palliative medicine. But in survivorship care, the survivorship care is still finding its place. So these are just few differences, but what is common among them? That palliative care and survivorship care both begins at the diagnosis. So both are interdisciplinary, both are multi-professional, both have confusion on their terminology. Like palliative, like I previously said, palliative care, people think that it is just end of life care, and survivorship care, which I thought previously that when the patient is treated from cancer, then only we say cancer survivors. But we should clear these terminology. And now I come across the last segment of my presentation, that what should be the future of palliative care and survivorship care. First, they should clear confusion on their terminology. How? By marketing campaigns, by education program like this, by in palliative care, there is in 2019 Government of India and Medical Council of India in 2019 had introduced an ATCOM module. ATCOM is Attitude, Ethics and Communication module for undergraduate MBBS students. So palliative care was a part of it, so that MBBS student can understand the basics of palliative care. Also, there is one CTC program going on for palliative care, the Cancer Treatment Center. We have teach the palliative care to 50 centers. In last 5 years, we have teach 50 centers palliative care. But in survivorship care, the process is slow. The progress is slow. So what we saw today will be today, and if we arrange meetings like this in the future again, so the seeds sown today will become the roots, and these roots become the large trees for the survivorship care. And second is making a cost-effective model because the most of the patients are poor, so we have to make some cost-effective model so that patient can come to hospital without much expenses. And third is research. Because the research will make better patient, will ensure better patient outcomes. And at last, I want to say that we have to create a workforce who in collaboration can work for the continuum of both palliative care and survivorship care. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prashant, for explaining so clearly about palliative care and survivorship care. You have answered most of our queries that we had in mind. Thank you so much. I would request the panelists to please keep sitting here, because we'll be soon inviting our survivors, and I'm sure they would like to interact with you and know your opinions about what they speak. UWCAN Foundation was established in the year 2012 in consultation with Indian Cancer Society, Delhi, and with our support. Here we have our chairperson, Mrs. Jyosna Govil, with Mr. Yuvraj Singh at the inaugural function of his foundation, UV Care, way back in 2012. Mr. Yuvraj Singh was to attend our seminar today, but he is participating in the Road Safety World Service 2022 and is playing a cricket match in Indore at this moment. But he has been kind enough to send a video message to convey all his good wishes and to encourage all of us.
Hi, this is Yuvraj Singh, and I just want to say, people who are going through cancer, I feel their pain. I have been through that journey, and I just want to say that when I was going through that journey, I had the best of doctors around me, and I had the right advice. My advice to you would be, never give up, because you don't know what is waiting on the other side. I know it's a difficult journey, but you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe in the people around you who are supporting you. They're going to get the best out of you. And my mantra is never give up, so you never give up. My best wishes to you, lots of love and speedy recovery. We can.
That was really good. Now, after we've had this great session about survivorship from doctors and professionals, we have very, very inspirational survivors with us today who have faced the treatment with courage and brought back their lives on track. In fact, they've made it even better than what it was before because of their remarkable attitude. So before I call them onto the stage, I'll request our CEO, Indian Cancer Society, Delhi branch, Mrs. Priya Parmar, to please come up. She's truly indispensable for us. Priya, please come up. And we also request Mrs. Priya Khanna, Honorary Joint Director, Events. So Priya, here we have our young and vibrant Priya here. Yes, two Priyas. So now I'll call the survivors on stage. So we start with a young, wonderful kid, I can say, young man, Mr. Saksham Katiyar. He's pursuing his master's in business administration from the prestigious IIM Rohtak. So this is Saksham Katiyar. Come there. His mantra in life is, I never give a single moment of my precious life to negativity. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful mantra. Please sit down, Saksham.
लेफ्टिनेंट कर्नल मिसेस डॉक्टर गुंजन मल्होत्रा, प्लीज़। इन्होंने अपनी स्टडी FMMC पुणे से की है। योगा एंड कथक में भी आपकी बहुत अच्छी रुचि है। बीइंग दिस टाइम RNR में गायकोलॉजिस्ट हैं। प्लीज़। क्या मंत्र? सभी कठिनाइयों से बचाने के लिए भगवान आपका शुक्रिया।
Now I invite Mrs. Rashi Kapoor, who has conquered cancer twice. She is the founder and the present president of Sachin Sarcoma Society. We are very proud of you, Rashi, and we are very, very grateful to you. No, she has to come up anyway. It's comfortable, no, to come up? Yes. Okay.
She needs something extra to keep her life on.
Yes, we'll get that. This too. Will this be okay?
I'll manage. No worries.
Thank you. I think she's motivated us all today. A big hand of applause for her, yes. Her motto in life is that I want to remove the fear of cancer. We all, I think, are quite afraid of cancer. She wants to remove the fear. God bless her.
और अब मिस्टर पवन मल्होत्रा, प्लीज़ कम। बिंदास मुस्कुराओ, क्या गम है? जिंदगी में टेंशन किसको कम है? यस, ओनली यू आर इन चार्ज ऑफ योर हैप्पीनेस, प्लीज़। Thank you, Pavanji. Please. हर सुबह एक शाम लेकर आती है, हर सुबह एक आशा लेकर आती है और हर शाम एक सुखद शांति देकर जाती है। मिसेस मल्लिका घोष, सॉरी मिस मल्लिका घोष। ये एयर इंडिया में काम कर रही हैं।
By choice.
Yes. Please come. Invest wisely, stay healthy. This is in her mantra.
And now I'll invite Tamanna Punjabi. Miss Tamanna Punjabi, she's a young marketing professional working with HCL Technologies. She strongly believes that we cannot control everything in life. What we can control is our mind and our reactions.
सुदेश कोचर का बोलना है, बोल दीजिए। सुदेश कोचर, मिसेस सुदेश कोचर, वो आज यहाँ नहीं आ पाई हैं। वो एक मेटास्टैटिक ब्रेस्ट कैंसर सर्वाइवर हैं। ट्रीटमेंट के दौरान उन्होंने काफ़ी मुश्किलें आई हैं और उनके हस्बैंड भी काफ़ी बीमार रहे हैं, जिनका उन्होंने डट कर मुकाबला किया है। लेकिन दिस टाइम वो नहीं आई हैं, उनके घर में कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो गई जिसकी वजह से वो यहाँ नहीं आ पाई हैं। So sorry. Then.
So coming to our survivors present here. First we'll start with our young, handsome Saksham. So Mr. Saksham Katyar was diagnosed with grade 4 medulloblastoma at the young age of 12. So Saksham, you say cancer treatment was God sent and it was a great learning. Please tell us about it.
So what I'll tell you about is, I have been an introvert till my cancer treatment, maybe not a very good people to talk with, could not find a good company. So I thought, God thought, let's send this guy an upgrade chahiye isko. And upgrade came through doctors, they chose an app for me. So they opened my brain, give me an update, और वो install हुआ 1 साल लगा उसको, और मेरे को update हो गया.
What a wonderful update, I must say.
And then what came out was a very optimistic person. Now everything is very positive. I mean, of course, you know the preciousness of life after you go through a treatment. Yes. And now even one moment, एक moment भी नहीं है negativity के लिए, because sir said we have just 25,000 days. And exactly not even one day can be given to that. So yeah.
Yes, wonderful, Saksham. I'll ask you one more question. Adolescents and teenage, they come with their own set of problems and all that. So along with that, you faced the hardships of having cancer and its treatment. So tell us, how did you cope with it?
See, I can give you the perspective of a little child because I'm the one only here. As a child, you are mostly reliant on your parents. And I am very blessed to have my parents and I have my mother sitting here. Yes. She is the energy source. वही है मेरी energy source. वहीं से पूरी energy आती है. अगर आपके parents aware हैं, तो आप aware हो. और उसके बाद तो treatment की कोई problem ही नहीं है. तो yes, that happened. Of course, even I come from a 21st century. मेरे को पूरा knowledge था इसके बारे में. So whenever I thought कि मेरे को यहाँ पे issue हो रहा है, of course, sir talked about getting bad. तो I was like, if अगर ये slowly जा रहा है, तो why give it a thought? पूरा मैंने remove करा दिया. Let it go. All that. And if my friends are going ahead, I changed my school. I got better. I talked, but it's just an experience. It's just an experience. You have to go through it. And it's getting better. I'm very happy that it happened to me. It happened to me.
Also, I'll ask you this question because you're so positive. So, do you ever have this fear of recurrence because you got it at such a young age?
Not fear, but I do acknowledge that I have a higher chance than other people that it can recur to me. But now I have knowledge about it. I also know a lot about cancer, so I'm actually being precautious about it. And also, if I am precautious about it, I am also very strong about it. So if I have done it once, I know I can do it twice, rather than someone else who might not be able to fight with it.
Yes, correct. Just in short, 2-3 sentences, tell us about yourself.
I am the person in my right now in my college. I am the one who people call Jigadu and the socialist person. I cannot walk from a person without saying hello or greeting them because I love talking to people. You love experience. एक experience मिलता है लोगों से बात करके. हर इंसान अलग है और हर इंसान से कुछ सीखने को मिलता है. तो वो factor I cannot leave. बस नहीं होता अब.
Very nice. That's a good thing. So I'll ask the doctors. What's your take of the impact that the fear of relapse or recurrence has on patients?
Well, if I can speak.
Yes.
One thing that reverberated with me, what Saksham just said, one is he said कि मैंने बाल अपने shave कर दिए थे खुद ही.
Yes.
I didn't wait for the hair to fall.
Yeah.
I did exactly the same. When I was told that my hair will go, मैंने कहा मैंने ये एक बाल को गिरते हुए नहीं देखना. Take the whole damn thing off. Okay. And that was one thing. Second is that I also feel I changed as a person, like he said, and I became a little bit more outgoing. I was fine. I mean, I was okay before that also, but I also feel post my episode with the illness, I became a better person. I feel. Yes. So what he said, it sort of reverberated with me a lot. Yeah. So.
Yes, you start, valuing each moment of your
Absolutely.
life. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to say, Hiba? What about the caregivers? Do they also fear reoccurrence in the person they are looking after?
I think a lot of times the caregivers fear a lot more than the person themselves.
Yes.
Because कई बार उनको वापस वो experience go through नहीं करना होता, वो डर उनमें ज़्यादा बैठता है than the person, like Saksham said and Dr. Sudeep also said that वो खुद पे होता है, then that inner strength. I don't like to use the word strength because I feel everyone has resilience.
Yes.
So. But yeah, that's resilience you have, but sometimes your family feels a lot more worried and more concerned for you. If it comes back, then what am I going to do as a family? I went through it once. Do I have it in me to go through it again? I don't know.
Yes, most of the time we are more concerned for our loved ones than we are about ourselves.
Yeah, and I feel time is probably the biggest healer. And I remember when I initially completed my treatment, I remember in my lawn there used to be a sapling that my father had sort of, he had sort of put it there. And I always used to wonder, but जब तक ये दीवार के size का होगा, will I be around or not? Now that it's a huge tree which is taller than my 3-storied house. So yes, initially you do worry a little bit more, but as time goes on, you tend to think less about it. Even today, I mean, it's been 23 years for me now. There will be moments, I don't say they're very frequent, very probably once or twice in probably 6 months or something, where I suddenly get that thing, like yaar aise na ho jaye. And what my solution is, I sleep.
Yes, I think sleeping is good.
मैं कहीं बकवास है, मुझे नहीं सोचना. So I just sort of say I want to sleep. I don't want to think about it. And then when you get up in the morning, it's a new day, and I don't think about it anymore.
Great.
So
wonderful.
time. I just get time is the biggest healer. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Madam, I would like to add.
Yes.
From the doctor's perspective, breaking the news to a patient, discussing about the treatment, and discussing about the chances of relapse, it's a very serious issue.
Yes.
And I would confess that as a doctor, you don't get it overnight, You keep on treating, you keep on honing your skills, and you try to mellow down, you try to peter down, and you try to bring sensitivities whenever you discuss. So discussing about relapse, it causes burnout to me also. It is not that, and it causes a lot of discomfort because I am not God. I cannot predict that X will, relapse and Y won't relapse. So you have to give a very cautious outlook, but at the same time, you have to give a lot of hope. And you have to give the correct picture also. So how you mix all of them,
Correct.
put it in a blender and mix it, and
Yes, it's a Herculean task.
that
sure.
itself is an art.
Yes, it's an art. And I think onco doctors become more of psychiatrists over the period of time.
No, why I'm saying this is because when you treat a patient in oncology setup, it is not like cardiology or nephrology where patient comes to you, you do the bypass and that's it. You are treating the whole family. It comes like a bolt from the blue. You have a person who's absolutely fine day one before, and next day something hits like a bolt from the blue. So you have to get those sensitivities in your mind, and then you have to deliver.
Yes.
If you don't do that, treating anybody can do. What is treatment? If mix the drug and glucose and give it, or you do the surgery. But then the counseling prior to it, I feel that is very, very important. And after the treatment, not just the treatment. Treatment just forms a very small part of the whole gamut.
Yeah, that's truly relatable for all of us also as volunteers. We also, really believe and know that the whole family gets affected. Yes, thank you.
Saksham, you are a very positive guy. So I want to hear what were your coping strategies at that time when you were ill, and what are your hobbies now?
I'll give you my techniques and my mantras now. So I told doctors that I know this is, I had grade 4, and when I used to get my report, that post when you are released, there was a word written high risk that I used to read. I'm like, sir, can you just remove this word from my report? I just don't like this word. You keep these technical terms to yourself. I just don't. You fight your wars yourself. I'll fight my war myself. My fight is going to be my willpower. Your fight is going to be medicines. So that's how I fought with it. One of my mantra. And what I like today is, I told you once that playing badminton, esports, doing trading, observing people, sitting out, playing music, I do everything. I just don't want to miss out on anything. Everything.
Wonderful. Next question, Dr. Gunjan. Yes.
Thank you.
गुंजन जी, थैंक गॉड के आपको कैंसर छू कर निकल गया. बहुत ही आपको, जैसे आप इसी लाइन में हैं, डॉक्टर्स लाइन में हैं, तो क्या वजह, इसकी वजह से आप कैंसर पेशेंट को ज़्यादा अच्छे से देख पा रही हैं, क्योंकि वो आपने सबको झेला है, आप उसने सबको आपको उस लाइन से आप निकली हैं, तो क्या आप उसमें ज़्यादा बेहतर परफॉर्म कर पा रही हैं, पेशेंट्स की परेशानियाँ ज़्यादा समझ पा रहे हैं?
डेफिनेटली मैम, बिकॉज आपने वो सफरिंग झेली है. सो नाउ मतलब आफ्टर आई हैड ब्रेस्ट कैंसर स्टेज 2 in 2020, and it was during the COVID times.
Yeah.
So it was like a double trouble for me. And I used to have patients with me जिनका कीमो चलता होता था. Small छोटे छोटे बच्चे, मतलब उस टाइम पे there were small kids lying down और उनको भी कीमो चल रहा होता था. So there was a lot of, the problem with cancer is that it's a very long process. It takes about 7 to 8 months. You have to go through the grid and everything.
Oh.
So you've gone through the grid of getting a surgery done. Uske baad you've gone through chemo and then radiation. And of course, as everybody mentioned, I lost my hair also. And when I was losing my hair, at that time, I'm just giving you an insight. When I was losing my hair, I was so disheartened. I was absolutely depressed. I'm not the kind of a person who is depressed. I'm very happy-go-lucky. But that time I was so depressed, and that is when my son, Rohan, he just took me and he just shaved off my head. And the entire process of going through that kind of a emotional low during cancer, now when you see these kind of patients who come to you, you definitely empathize with them. So मेरे OPD में and in my hospital, everybody knows that I've gone through cancer. So even the onco-surgeons, they refer the patients to me. कि भाई इसका lump एक बार देख लेना and just counsel. So it definitely helps.
Definitely helps to. Patients आपके पास आना ज़्यादा prefer करते होंगे.
Yes, they do, and I counsel them and I empathize with them and I take care of them. That is the least I can do.
तो जैसे कैंसर से आप तो बहुत अच्छी तरह उसके नॉलेज में आ गई, आप बहुत अच्छे से जानती थी उसको। उसके बाद जब आपने उसको फर्स्ट टाइम आपका उसका फेस हुआ, आपने कैंसर को फर्स्ट टाइम, तो तब आपके मन में एकदम से क्या विचार है?
मैम इसके बारे में मैं एक्चुअली इट एक्चुअली गोज बैक टू लाइक सर बोल रहे थे कि बहुत ड्रामेटिक एक्सपीरियंस था. कैन आई स्टैंड अप?
या श्योर मैम, श्योर.
So it just goes back to a long time back, and my son who's present here will tell me shoo kuch mat bolna. So it so happened in 2013 I am an army officer, a gynecologist in army, and I finished 23 years of service. And in Meerut in 2013 he was just 10 years old and he started bedwetting. So like डॉक्टर, मैंने कहा यार यूरिन में कोई इन्फेक्शन होगा, यूरिन कल्चर करा लेते हैं, यूरिन आरई वगैरह करा लेते हैं, दवाई दूंगी ठीक हो जाएगा. आई यूज टू गो इन द मॉर्निंग फॉर माई जिमिंग एंड माई रनिंग एट दैट टाइम. एंड मैं जब हॉस्पिटल पहुंची, पैथो लैब पहुंची, तो द पैथोलॉजी वाला जो बंदा था उसने बोला मैम बाकी सब तो ठीक है, इसकी यूरिन में शुगर 3+ है. आई जस्ट कुडंट रिलेट. And I said, blood sugar कराते हैं, देखते हैं. And his father has a bad habit. He had a bad habit, बड़ा क्यूट सा बच्चा था, गोल मटोल सा. तो उसकी बड़ी बैड हैबिट थी उसके लिप्स के ऊपर किस करने को. तो ही यूज टू कीप टेलिंग कि यार तेरी ना ब्रेथ बड़ी स्वीट है, यू बहुत टेस्टी होती है. एक्चुअली जब उन्होंने शुगर चेक किया तो his sugar was almost 440-50. And he was going into diabetic ketoacidosis. And उस दिन मेरे almost 5 या 6 cases lined up थे. I don't know how I finished those cases in the OT. And we took him to Meerut, being वहाँ पे कोई pediatrics वाला ज़्यादा कुछ था नहीं. We took him to civil, and they started his insulin. यहाँ इसकी insulin चल रही थी. His father was there, and I was in the OT operating, and I came back. After few days, I was in that grid कि बस अब इसको दवाई देनी है, सब कुछ करना है, everything he has to get all right. That's it. But in few days I realized I used to get calls from everywhere, people talking to me. यार, very sad to hear this. And I used to think ये बहुत ज़्यादा कुछ हो गया है क्या मेरी लाइफ में. So that part was very very shattering for me, very shattering. So जब इस बार जब मेरे को problem हुई, I actually noticed a small lump COVID times में in my axilla, and after 15-20 days I had a small lump in my breast.
Yes.
So मैंने कहा बॉस कुछ तो गड़बड़ है. And I just went to my hospital, army hospital, RNR, where I'm right now. And we had the expertise of the best doctors, and they kind of diagnosed me. And now in my diagnosis, तथागत चैटर्जी सर होते थे तब, तो मेरे को बुलाया गया ना, मतलब बहुत ड्रामेटिकली आफ्टर 1 hour कि आओ आराम से बैठो.
situation, or you're getting out of that situation. So positivity, I think, is huge, along with the willingness to shave off your hair, I guess. Everybody's shaving off their hair. Huh?
Yes.
So I mean, see, again, I think it's related to attitude, rather than वो एक बाल गिरे और आप फिर रो and फिर हाय मेरे बाल and whatever, दफा करो ना. So that's sort of an attitude. I feel somewhere it's worked for people, right?
Yes.
And everybody is on stage and talking about it confidently rather than hiding and नहीं कुछ था मेरे कुछ the इलाज किया था. So this is the attitude which
That
ultimately
matters.
it's all about, and that positivity. Even in terms of, I think, oncology, I think it ups our immune system, and ultimately, when immunotherapy is about immune system, yeah.
I want to add one small thing
Yes,
here.
yes, sure.
So, like Dr. Vineet said about diet, I think the thing with the doctor being chill about it really helped me also. My doctor said, just continue eating. Dr. Raghunath Rao, he said, eat what you eat. In moderation, everything is fine. But my mom got a million different, everyone was a doctor. All relatives, friends, everyone. Tum sugar mat khao, doodh mat piyo, lactose ka kuch bhi mat khao. And I think that just worked. I didn't stop eating anything. I ate everything and I'm here. So
people to eat whatever they want.
No, another thing I would like to add here is we are talking about the family backup and the emotional things. I think we are blessed to be in a country like India.
Yes, of course.
Where you have such a rich culture and you have such a great family values,
yes.
that everybody has said they had a great family backup. That is the most important thing.
Correct.
I happened to work in New York Medical College way back in 2000. I was doing my fellowship there, and there there was a lady, 80-year-old lady, whose son was in some about 200 kilometers away. Every day she used to get a fresh bouquet and everything, and that's it. I mean, and here, if you have anybody who's sick, you have 2-3 people around you, you feel that as if, you are cared, and that makes a lot of difference.
So we've had this
good about India.
Yeah, we've had this lovely interaction amongst the survivors and the doctors, but we'd like to include the audience also. So please feel free, put in questions to survivors, to doctors, to professionals, whomever you want to. If you want to name somebody, you can ask them.
I actually want to ask.
Yes, sure.
Just one question. When we are
Here, Mike.
your first follow-up, and it's in remission, and you're declared, you're documented tumor-free. I think there's a phase of 1.5 years, roughly, when you're going through, say, energy fluctuations, or you're experiencing some side effects of chemotherapy as a patient. This is my input. The only time I felt that vulnerability is when I was actually going through these side effects, because I did not preempt, and probably I did not ask the relevant questions, and I was not prepared for the the recovery, post-recovery phase, where your energy fluctuations are happening, you're getting some pain, you're getting some niggles somewhere. So that's the only time I worked through it, through meditation. That worked for me, and obviously the diet. That worked wonders. But I think if I had just some preparedness, it wouldn't have been, that was the only phase that I would say was a little challenging. It would have been more of a breeze. Of course, now, 1.5 years later, I'm normal, and somebody recently asked me a question about radiotherapy. And I said, okay, let me try and remember what it was. Mine was so beautifully conducted. I said, okay, let me just travel back in time and try and remember how exactly I was feeling. It was done so beautifully. So this is 1.5 years after you are declared tumor-free. I think that one phase, just as a patient, it's just a request that, if the doctor just prepares the patient that for 1.5 years, these are the side effects you'll be experiencing, stay chilled. Yeah, stay chilled and release your fear. It's not cancer coming back.
Any questions?
You're right.
My personal experience,
Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Most
One
of the
minute.
times it is, allaying the anxiety because, even if you have a small pain in the shoulder or some nagging pain in the tummy, immediately the antenna is up, that is it linked to that or not? So most of the time it is allaying the anxiety. It is not, that alarming. So it depends how you, and India is a land of jugaad. So everybody has his or her own went out. So I guess, everybody has to find your own, you have to find your own went out. Like I used to have triple Sundays, now I don't have it. So if you can find your own went out, it would be a great thing. Saying is very easy, but then, you have to really slog for
I
it.
think the doctors find it much more because I remember Dr. Gogia would give me a definite date for a follow-up. And I would turn up at 9:30, and the first follow-up that I actually turned up, he was in absolute panic. He said, suddenly what has happened? This is,
Yeah, I think now we'll move on to the audience because we should running short of time. Sorry, they I think are wanting to ask a few questions. At lunchtime. Inderjeet.
I have two questions, if you allow me. One is for Dr. Vineet Talwar. He was talking about targeted therapy. So I was just wondering, the cartoon which you showed, how do you actually identify the target?
No, that's a good question because, identifying targets, you have a lot of studies which are in vivo and in vitro in which you find out these targets which are there. And it's a very painful process. You have to go through a lot of drug trials and you have to do a lot of basic research. And based on that, you come to find out that X, Y, Z are the targets. We find a lot of targets in the body, but then amongst them, just a few of them are the ones which are druggable. So there is a thing like next generation sequencing or whole exome sequencing. There's a whole project like the Human Genome Project in which you find the genes and then you find the aberrations. And then again you find amongst these aberrations which are the aberrations which can be drugged and which cannot be drugged.
Okay.
So you have a plethora of targets in the body because your whole body has been mapped in the genome project. And out of that, you're trying to sift out which are the ones which can be targeted, and then you apply the drug to that.
So it's quite a difficult
it's just like a balloon. You have a bleb on that balloon, and if you can target that bleb, then you burst the balloon. That means you kill the cancer cell. So when you do that, you don't cause any damage to the cells, the normal cells which are around. So that's the basic.
And my second question is to all the survivors here and to the doctors. We have been talking about food, what to eat, what not to eat. But should a microwave be used for a cancer patient during treatment or after treatment? Because there is a myth or a truth in that microwaves are not good.
I'll just give one answer to this. Many of us are surviving here.
Yes.
After cancer, and we all use microwaves. At least I do. So I think everything is as safe as it can be.
And there is an example here, that's why I asked, because he is a liver cancer patient.
No,
and
I'll
his
give the
wife
answer to
is
that.
not using the microwave, that's why
Madam, I'll give you an answer to that. Microwave is a non-ionizing radiation, so it does not cause any problem.
It's not going to cause, yes.
This was for you.
Any other question from the audience?
I just wanted to have a small question from. What's the scope of CAR T cell therapy right now in India, and when can we have it here?
No, we have already started the trials. They are being started in Tata Memorial. What you do in CAR T cell therapy is you take out the cancer cell, again you find a probe, you attach to it, and then you reintroduce in the body. And that probe keeps on going around the body, and wherever you find those cancer cells, it kills it. If you take CAR T cell therapy in US, I guess it's about $600 million at this point of time. It is very expensive. But then, as the time passes, when the generic versions come, it is going to become cheaper and cheaper. The more and more people.
China is cheaper, I believe.
China, everything is cheap. You have A grade, B grade, C grade.
Sir, I just wanted to ask one thing, that if it is a targeted therapy, like in future, will people lose hair? Like, because if it is targeted therapy, it will just be in
Targeting
that particular, yeah.
Correct.
So is there hope for the people who undergo?
Definitely, and there are newer therapies now, where you have a cool cap system, in which about 20-30% of people don't lose hair. So that is also, undergoing trials. The problem with all these things is that you have a study of 10 or 20 patients, you just throw it in the news and you sensationalize it, and then people say, like, that monoclonal antibody which came for the rectal cancer.
Yes.
So they said that it is a panacea for all the cancers. Unfortunately, it's not like that. So it has to be a responsible journalism. And, you should give everything in the correct perspective.
Yes, so I think on this note, we'll end this discussion because we're running out of time. Thank you so much. One question? Okay, please ask. Okay.
If it's so much positivity all around, who are you going to advise?
I think that can also be shared, right? So positivity can also be shared.
It's contagious.
हर दफा कोई उदासी में नहीं आता, लोग कभी कभार बहुत happy messages भी डालते हैं. Sometimes I'm wondering, like, are you okay? No, just wanted to drop a hi. I said, okay, fine. So that's also allowed.
Yes.
Also, I don't think positivity is going to stay 24/7. So I'm sure we need you all the
Sometimes we
time
need,
to help
yes.
us at the other times. So.
Yes. Thank you so much. Now you all can please go and sit back and relax, I think.
Thank you.
A big round of applause for every one of them. Yes.
Shall we?
आधा संडे हो गया सर.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you. And now I invite our chairperson, Mrs. Josna Govil. She'll come and give a wrap up of all this. Just announce once more. So over to Mrs. Josna Govil. Please sit down, everyone.
Take time to come up. Sorry, folk. I'm going to be the haddi before you get your khana. So you'll bear with me for just a few moments of summing up. We've had such a good session today, and I thank each and everyone who spoke. Thank you to everyone who spoke. Thank you for everyone who sat and participated from the audience, particularly to a lot of Sudeep's journey. I think you put hope into everybody. It's difficult to sum up each and every person's journey, remarks, all of it. But I was just reminded that 30 years ago, we did a similar seminar on survivorship. That was so somber. Everyone was just so happy that they had come out of treatment. They were not looking at life ahead. They were looking at each step, each day at a time. And it was really pretty scary. For people like me, I'm not a survivor, I'm a caregiver. But that memory stayed in my mind. And today was so different. From Kanchan, who started with her keynote address, to all the doctors, Vineet, who just about ran in 5 minutes before he was due on the stage. Thank you, Vineet. You must have driven like the crazies. And to everybody, and all the wonderful survivors. It's so uplifting to hear your stories, to hear your positivity, to feel that there is so much to look forward to. And indeed there is. Sudeep, I'm 80. So I've lived my 250 odd days or whatever. But I assure you I haven't given up. We're all at it. It's not just me. If you look around, there are lots of us in off-white saris, suits, whatever. And it's easy to identify all our Cancer Sahyog volunteers. Please take time during lunch to speak to people. Don't run away. I know the doctor's habits. Stay and have lunch, because that is the time for fellowship and interaction. And that's true for everybody. Please don't run away. We give lunch here simply because it gives people an opportunity to meet and discuss and share notes and whatever. So for everyone who feels that they have a question they have not been able to ask, that's your time for doing it. The words I picked up were not just positivity. It was energy. It was never say die. It was, where's Tamanna? What was the word you used? She's even forgotten.
I can only remember old man.
Old man. Yeah. No one's called me old girl yet, so you're welcome. But thank you all. I'm leaving the official vote of thanks to my friend Rekha Gulabani. Please come.
Thank you, Jyotna ji, and thank you everyone for being here on this evening to make this seminar so successful. कहते हैं मैं शुक्रिया करूं तो तेरा कहाँ तक करूं, मैं शुक्रिया करूं तेरा तो कहाँ तक करूं, मैंने जो सर झुकाया वो कम था तेरे एहसान के आगे. तो आई एम थैंकफुल टू ऑल ऑफ यू. On behalf of the Cancer Sahyog, the emotional support group of the Indian Cancer Society Delhi branch, we must thank all those without whose support the seminar would not have been possible. So we thank from the bottom of our heart CIPLA for being the major supporter of today's seminar. And we have an old association with CIPLA. They have always come forward to support us most of the years we had. Indian Cancer Societies and Cancer Sahyog is the unit of Indian Cancer Society, are greatly thankful to the India International Center for providing this venue free of any charges. And India International Center has always been doing so in the past also. We have had our seminars many times over here. We wish to thank all the doctors on the panel, and not only these doctors, but also the doctors of all the hospitals where our volunteers go to give emotional support and information required by the patients. All the doctors and the healthcare providers have been very supportive and very cooperative, and I want a round of applause for all the doctors and hospitals. Thank you so much. We are grateful, and we wish to thank ASMA and their owner, Mr. Sameer Mehra, who have always given us the unconditional support in making our things so successful. We are grateful to the patients and the panelist doctors who gave their time. They have been extremely busy. I know their schedule because I have been going to this hospital for the last 20 years. So I know they hardly have time even to have a cup of tea, and they took out their precious time for us. We are really grateful to them. And we are grateful to all the motivational and inspirational volunteers who shared their amazing stories with us. And I know, and we all know for sure, that there are many over here who are as brave as all the survivors who were on the stage. The survivors sitting over here are also quite brave, and I am very proud of them, you know. And we also want to take this opportunity to thank the generous donors and the supporters who keep us supporting Indian Cancer Society and Cancer Sahyog throughout the year. And thank you, lovely audience, for being so patient and then listening everything attentively. And you will spread the message out, and more people will come forward for treatment at the 0 and first stage, and you will be saving more and more lives. Thank you, this good audience. And how can I forget the Indian Cancer Society staff? The staff of the administrative office and the Prashanti staff and the staff at the Cancer Detection Center. They have been working tirelessly to make this seminar so successful. We could not do it without their help. कहते हैं हमारी खुशियों के अवसर में आकर आपने लगा दिए 4 चांद. हमारी खुशियों के अवसर में आके आपने लगा दिए 4 चांद. दिल की गहराइयों से आपका धन्यवाद. Thank you. I'm sorry if I
So please come, let's join us for lunch. Thank you.